Okay, everybody. Sorry, little running around this morning trying to get everything right. Welcome to episode 4. Feel off here. Welcome to episode 4 of Pull Up a Chair, where we talk about replays, we talk about the history of baseball, we talk about the community, how things are going. We talk to developers, kind of get a feeling for where everybody's at when it comes to this great hobby of ours. So today's show, episode 4, gonna kind of wing it a little bit, if you will. Gonna have on Ian Brooke, who is the designer of On Deck Baseball. Can't wait to talk about that. And for those of you who don't know the game, we'll have Ian on to kind of show his game a little bit, as far as talk about it. And kind of talk about why it's unique. I have played it a lot. We're going to talk about co-op a lot in this episode, because Ian has been uniquely kicked off his product with a co-op, and he'll explain that a little bit, or we'll dive into that with him. And we want to talk a little bit about fictional leagues as well. Some things that we've kind of touched on a little bit in the last couple of shows, but dive in deeper. And as always, what I think is a really fun thing for me on this show is that getting different people's perspectives of all that. And then with the way this show's working out, because of timings and schedules and stuff, Marco is going to be on, and I think that most of you know who Marco is. If you don't know who Marco is, you're in for a major treat. He is a fantastic gentleman from Chicago. I have to say that as Ian is here, Ian, I'm just kind of kicking off the show.
Okay.
So I was just kind of introducing a little bit about both of you. I was on Marco at this point, but Marco is a fantastic individual that I started. Probably one of my first YouTubes that I started watching when I got back into this all, and found everybody on YouTube. Marco is one of the game players that I found, and he was basically showing off a lot of play games, and he's a big soccer guy. He's a big Chicago Bear fan, but he's going to be on, I think he said around 11 Central, which is about noon my time. Am I going the right way? No, I don't know which way I'm going. Anyway, he'll be on after that. So, but as I said, with Ian, welcome Ian to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ian's going to dive in. We're going to dive in together into talking about his game. And Ian, I was just saying in the beginning of the show that I have the game, that I played it, obviously. And I forgot that I had that big 40-game season that I used of your not your fictional players, but your Hall of Fame league. I forget exactly what
the legends of
the legends. Yeah, remember I did that 40-game season. I put them all into like 10 or 12
that was
games.
fun.
I can't remember. 40 games each. That was I have to put that with my experience with payoff pitch. I talked about this, I think, on my last show, that payoff pitch kept me going on when I replayed 1986. I replayed the entire season, every game. I don't know how many that is, 2,000 games. Took me a year and a half, and I credit a lot of that to payoff pitch, because one of the hardest things to do, man, is to complete a personal run, especially that many games. But even a 40-game season over 10, 12 teams, it's not easy to do on your own. And your game kept me focused and excited about playing. And I finished that 40-game season, went all the way into the playoffs, did the whole thing. That was so much fun.
And it was pretty quick too. I don't remember it taking very long for you.
It didn't, because it's yet another game that I didn't pick up anything else, despite the shiny objects that we talked about in the last show. Your game kept me away from the shiny objects. I was so into it that it kept me away from it. And we're going to dive into what those things are, and what's some unique things about your game, and kind of the things that you do to make your game a little different. Let me center me a little better here. Okay, so let's talk about your game On Deck. How did you come about deciding, hey, I want to build a game and I want to put it out there?
It's kind of interesting because I didn't really grow up as a dice gamer. So I didn't really have games on the table all that much. I played Stratomatic when I was younger. My dad had a set. I would probably say somewhere between 85 and 87 because he was a Mets fan. So he kind of got it to do that. I also had another one that had the little discs and a spinner on it. I don't remember what that was called.
All-Star Baseball, I think.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. It could have been something like that. That wasn't really one of our favorites because, you never know where the needle's going to land, how hard you hit it or whatever. I don't know. The spinner doesn't really do it for me. Somebody said my books look neat. Yeah, I got a lot of them up there.
Yeah. We're going to get into those too. What all that is.
Yeah. But yeah, I was never really into that kind of stuff. And then when I moved down from New York to Florida, I picked up a game called, I want to say it was MLB Showdown. It was something that you would get in packs. I want to say it was marketed by Wizards of Cards and Comics or something like that, something weird. But I found that, playing these games never really appealed to me because it wasn't a game that I could really get into. And then I thought to myself, well, what if I made a game for myself that I was really into? And I just started kind of developing ideas. And then over the course of literally probably 10 years, I created certain mechanics, and this is coming into it without hardly any knowledge about how any other games work. I just created mechanics on how I thought they should work and how I thought that players should interact on the field. And I think that's why my game is a little bit different when it comes to like double play mechanics, because you're actually trying to figure out if the fielder makes the transition from second over to first. And the confrontation roll is one of my main mechanics. And that comes up in play a lot with, individual players on the field. And coming from a baseball background, I'm a baseball enthusiast my entire life. And I wanted to have that feel that you were on the field. And that's kind of also where the name On Deck Baseball came from, because you're on deck, you're like about to step into the batter's box of the game. And it just kind of came together like that. So I started working in a pharmacy when I moved down to Florida, and I had some extra time. I wasn't a certified tech, so I couldn't do all the cool stuff in the pharmacy. So my pharmacist was like, look, if you don't have anything to do, I don't care what you do. So I'm sitting over on the counter with plenty of time on my hands for the most part, when it wasn't busy. And I just started putting together mechanics of game that I would want to play. And eventually over time, it became something of a hobby, created a game. My buddy and I started playing the game. We put together teams. This is all fictional, by the way. This is not historical because we wanted to go the fictional route. And we started playing, and we played 2 seasons of a game over the course of probably 3 years when I transitioned into a restaurant management, which I did for 15 years. And we just went from there. And eventually I got talked into bringing it to market. And to my surprise, people really enjoyed it. And it kind of took off. And that's really, to make it very short, that's the story of the evolution of the game.
Can you talk a little bit about the design that went in and the thought process that went into your very unique design cards? Because they are, if you haven't seen On Deck Baseball, these are, I always talk about Payoff Pitch as the best cards in the game because of the price and the quality of the card. But from an aesthetics perspective, nothing beats what Ian puts out for On Deck. And I'm not just saying that because he's in front of me. You guys have heard me say this. It's a very unique card. Can you talk a little bit about it and what went into all that?
Sure. Well, I think probably first and foremost is the artwork that's associated with the card. I really felt like when I was playing a game, I wanted to be able to connect to these players. And that's really hard to do when you're staring at a front of a card that's just a bunch of numbers and colors. And it really didn't bring me into the game. So I wanted something to be able to do that. And that's kind of where it started. The very first initial versions of the game, I was able to secure some artwork that was more generalized. So I had probably like 18 different characters that were baseball related, and I was able to change the colors. So I would change, skin tones and stuff like that. And I would make it so it fit different players and the uniforms into different colors so they could fit into different teams. But that still didn't really kind of take it where I wanted to go. I wanted to see like individual players. So I got onto Fiverr, which is a freelance website that you can find pretty much anything. They can create episodes for you, cartoons, and one of them is artwork. And I found an artist. He created some artwork for me for individual players. This is actually my first artist. and he probably did the first 4 teams for my fictional version of the game, and then he just kind of like ghosted me, and I was looking for another artist. Yeah, it was crazy because like he did one project for me, and then that was it. Like, well, he did 4 projects, 4 teams, but he did one that left and then just disappeared. Okay. So then I was on the hook for trying to find another artist that could create similar artwork that hit the theme, and I found this really great guy. He's in Indonesia.
Wow.
Yeah, and honestly, he's making a living off of my artwork. I actually sent him through to school. He went to art school, and he used my money that I was paying for these projects for his tuition, his books, and everything. I literally got an email from his mom thanking me for doing all of it.
Cow, what a story.
So that's one of the other reasons why I do a lot of artwork. Sometimes I do stuff like I did fantasy stuff of like ogres playing baseball and stuff when I didn't have any projects going, just because I wanted to keep him working. I wanted to keep him doing something. But anyway, so I got these individual players. I felt like there was more of a connection to each of the cards because of that, started playing with that. And you just feel like a real connection to these players. And I think you could ask anybody that plays my fictional league. I saw that, Ray left that comment. You get attached to some of these players, and some of them annoy you. Some of them really excite you when they come to the plate. I have this one guy on one of the teams called the Phantoms. His name is Joe Glenn. He's a first baseman for the Phantoms. I can't stand him. He's a great player, and I don't know why. He just comes off arrogant to me, and like I've never spoken. This guy doesn't exist in real life, and yet I hate him. I can pull him out. You want to see what he looks like?
Yeah, I'd love to. Okay, while you're doing that, there's a second part to your card uniqueness for me that somebody challenged me in the chat, but the second uniqueness. Here we go.
That's Joe Glenn.
Oh, and it's a great look at your cards too.
Yeah.
How the cards look for everybody. What I want to talk about was the second unique part is that it's not only the front of that card that looks unique and is amazing. You actually went to the back of the card, and there's nobody in the business that does that.
So I think one of the priorities, and probably the main priority when I was creating my game, is the fact that I hate external charts. When I did play Stratomatic when I was a kid, you couldn't get, you could kind of have like the really basic game, and you could roll through a game, but if you really wanted to dive into the game, you're pulling out like 10, 15 charts, and you got this stuff all over your table, and where do you go from there? Like, you can't eat while you're playing a game because you're covered with charts. So, and one of the reasons, and I get a lot of people saying that the cards are big, well, every single chart you need to play the game is on the back of the card. So these are the things that kind of drove me. Like, one of my priorities was to have no external charts. And I would say probably about, I think I did do the math at one point. I forgot the exact number, but it's somewhere between 95 and 97% of the game is actually played off of the cards themselves. I do have special situation charts. There are some injury stuff. Like, there are charts, but you hardly ever have to reference them to actually get through a game. I could go probably 5 or 6 games without having to reference a special situation chart, which is, take it or leave it. It's good or bad. I like to have those rare instances come in, but they do come in, and I feel like they come in enough. I did up the frequency when I was developing the game because they weren't coming up enough, but I think it's kind of fine-tuned exactly where I want it now. But yeah, the back of the cards were very important because I didn't want to have to reference more charts. I wanted you to be able to roll the dice. I wanted you to be able to satisfy a play in 1, 2, at the most 3 dice rolls. And some people actually satisfy the entire play on 1 roll because they use 4 dice. Right. The game comes with 2, so I play it with 2, but you could do another one. Some people use a white die for a confrontation roll, the red and blue for the matrix resolution, and then a green one for the fielders. Steve Tower does this a lot when he plays a game on his channel. And actually in our local league that we have here face to face, we started using 4 dice only because we're under tight schedules. So it does make the game go a little bit, faster.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I was using 4 dice. And it's what made mine go a little faster. But I also want to state that if anybody's looking at that and going, oh man, I got to flip the card back and forth. I didn't. Here's what I did, Ian, so that I didn't have to flip the card back and forth. Because I use Digital Diamond as my scoring entry piece that keeps score. I actually put in the ratings from the front of the card into Digital Diamond. And so when I needed to see the pitcher's rating or the batter's rating, I had it right there on the screen.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to flip the card. So you could play the entire game off the back of the card.
Absolutely. And also on the website, I do have downloads for score sheets where you could put all the ratings,
nice.
Where the players are. So you could have that all on your score sheet as you're rolling.
That's a great
There's a
idea.
lot of these guys in the community are so great. And this is something that I wasn't introduced to until I brought a game to market. I didn't know this community existed before I brought this game to market. And these guys are so good about making things on their own, putting stuff together for their own leagues, and creating score sheets dedicated to the game. So there is a website or a site, there is a page on the website that you could download anything that's user created for everything for On Deck Baseball. But one of those is score sheets.
Okay. And if you guys just put in On Deck Baseball on Facebook, you'll see the group, Facebook group that Ian has. And there's a lot of, we're going to get into discussing the fictional versus the, basically his catalog. But there is a lot of people in there doing a lot of different things. But let's kind of pivot into what I thought was really a cool idea when you popped out the 1961 set. Can you talk a little bit about what you did with that to kind of promote that I've never seen any developer do?
Sure. I think we got to go a little bit further back because I started with the fictional version of the game release, and then obviously everybody wants historical. So I started doing historical probably about 2 years after. And, there's a lot of gray areas when you start using artwork for actual historical players and their names and everything. So I really started kind of like treading water lightly going into that area. But I got in touch with lawyers and all kinds of stuff, and everything is clear, especially now with the lawsuit that went through with, their names are public domain with the fantasy baseball. Everything is kind of like usable now. As long as I'm not using photographs of these players, all the artwork is under my own commercial use. So I have all the rights. It's considered artistic representation of an individual. So I could have all that. So that's really what held me back from doing historical version of the game. Once that started kind of like the dominoes falling and started putting out sets, excuse me, I really wanted to do a season set. And I know that, the replay value of tabletop dice baseball games is very held to a high standard. If you don't put out a season set, it's really hard to get the interest of, different users in the community. So when it came to that, picking a season was really vital for me. And, I got a hat on for a reason. I'm a Yankee fan. I'm not going to hide it. I feel like a lot of people out there already know I'm a Yankee fan. I take a lot of hits for it, and I'm okay with that because that comes with the territory. Yes. But the 1961 season, everybody knows for a couple of reasons, and that's Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris, right? They're all chasing the record, the home run record. So a couple other things came into it also, just because of the cost of production and everything. I couldn't really do a more modern season. I had to kind of stick back to fewer teams, and also, where the rosters were a lot fewer. I mean, you'll see in like the 1960s, teams didn't use more than 33, 34, sometimes up to 40 players. Now you'll see, like on professional rosters, there's like 60 players up that put on a uniform for, the Yankees last season, which is crazy. There's no way I could card all that and keep a set within, cost effective for the consumer. So anyway, I put together the 1961 set, wanted the best way to get it out into the eyes of everybody in the community. And what's the best way to do that? Replay the 1961 New York Yankees season, see if we could tackle the home run record, see if Roger Maris can come close. And it was also a good testing ground to see how my game would work under the conditions of a replay and see if the statistics could even come close. And I did a whole show on the recap, and the statistics, honestly, they shocked me. They were really amazing. Roger Maris ended up with, I think, 58 home runs, 3 off the pace. Mantle was a little bit less. I think he was 6 off his pace. I think he ended with 48 instead of 54. But Elston Howard and Johnny Blanchard were almost spot on with their statistics, which was crazy to me. I went into it really kind of scared, not knowing where these statistics were going to land. I mean, it's unknown territory for On Deck Baseball when you're considering a replay value. Usually it's best of the best sets where people can do like tournaments and, knock out whoever the best team is for, whichever franchise you want to do and put, projects together like that. But this was the way for me to get it in front of people's eyes, and it worked out great. Got 10 people, including yourself, that participated in the replay of the entire schedule of the 1961 season for the New York Yankees, albeit missing one game. There was a tie in 1961, and those stats actually added to the overall statistics historically. We didn't have a rain out. We didn't stop any games in the 5th game. It was against the Orioles, so we just basically got rid of that game, and we have 162 games played as opposed to 163. But I think everybody had a great time with it. People were feeding me their score sheets. I was keeping the stats on my computer. I ended up losing my tower. My
I remember that.
motherboard got fried. Yeah, I thought I lost
Right.
everything, man. It was
Oh,
terrible. I thought
you were
it was
freaking out.
all my sets and everything, like not even 1961 stuff. Like I thought On Deck Baseball was over. But anyway, brought it in. They were able to salvage my hard drive. I have that entire computer's hard drive on a little external hard drive connected to this new computer. Everything is good. Don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I compiled all the stats, came up with it. Everybody had a blast doing it. It was really great to see because, everybody plays On Deck a little differently. Some people play it up to the highest difficulty setting with the pitching. And I didn't put any restraints on anybody. I wanted people to enjoy the game as they were playing it. There was only a few things I wanted to say that, you had to use the starting lineup historically and the starting pitchers. If you want to make any substitutes, try to wait until the fifth inning. But if the game dictates it, play it how you would play it as a manager. I didn't want to put any handcuffs on anybody other than trying to keep it as historical as possible with the starting lineups and the starting pitchers. And people really enjoyed it. I mean, I got a lot of interest from it. I think it drove the game across that. I was trying to get over the boundary of like people just thinking of it as a fictional game going into historical territory. And yeah, I mean, replay might not be my thing, but I definitely see the value in it. And I really think that it hit the mark on that for a lot of people, especially the people that were playing it in the project. Sorry, I'm kind of on a rocky table here, so I keep bouncing up and down.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what you season-wise. I know there's fictional that you have, and you have greatest team sets or things like that, because I've got all of it sitting over on my shelf over here. Can you talk a little bit about what On Deck Baseball has to offer for the consumer out there? When they go to your site, what can they buy? What can they?
Sure.
So
we'll start off with fictional because that's kind of where the game started. With the fictional set, you can start off with season 1, and then I have up to 4 seasons available. I'm working on season 5 now. Within the seasons, I have several different sets that are available to you. One is a starter set with the first 6 teams, and then you could build on more teams from there using expansion packs, which I have. You can build your league up to 12 teams. It was 14 originally. I had 2 teams of female players. Didn't really, go over too well, so I stopped producing. It just didn't make sense. So now I have 12 teams that you could have in the league, and there's 3 league expansions with 2 teams each, which would bring the league to 12. I also have expansion packs for what I call the rookies. I have 3 sets of those. So that's 75 players in each of the expansion packs that are rookie aged players. So you're talking about ages, 18 to, I think the highest age in those packs might be 24. It's either 23 or 24. It's been a while. I've been doing historical for so long that it's been a while since I've created these other fictional sets.
Sure.
And then I do also have what I call the expansion player expansion draft or expansion set. And that has 50 players that are kind of like your medium tiered players. They could be like the veterans, some kind of like spot fillers. So some can play middle infield, some can play, utility outfield. You got catchers that could play, anywhere in the infield if you needed to. You got pitchers that could be long relievers. So they're not going to be your superstars or your stars, but they're going to be good players that can fill a role. And then there's also 25 more players in that set that I would consider probably star to superstar level, but they don't have names on it. So if you wanted to put yourself in the game, you could literally just write your name on the card, put yourself in your game. There's 25 of those. You could do your closest friends. You can make an entire team of everybody that you grew up with, your family, whatever you want to do. So as the fictional goes, you actually progress through your seasons. So as I mentioned, I have season 4 available. I'm working on season 5, and your players will progress. You'll develop and they'll evolve over the course of their career. So the older they get, if they start off young, you're typically, you're getting better in your ability. When you start to, around 32, 33, you start to digress in your ability. And that's all taken into account. And there's also, I'll put it right here, there's scouting ratings on the cards. So you're looking at like these blue personality traits, your work ethic, your IQ, the desire, loyalty, and greed, and all that plays into how the player is going to develop. But there's also something built into the game because scouts aren't always right. Right. So you got to take these scouting ratings and they're your guideline for how these players are going to be. But just because you got like a 5 IQ and his, work ethic is a 4, which 5 is the highest, it doesn't mean he's going to pan out. I mean, take a look at what was his name? Brian Taylor for the Yankees,
Yes,
the pitching
Yankees,
prospect that was supposed to be like the ace for the staff for the
I think he
franchise.
was a lefty, right?
10 years.
I remember him.
Yeah. Never made it to the majors.
Right.
And obviously there's a lot of things that play into that, but that's kind of built into the system too. They're a good guideline, but don't put all your weight in it. In other words, and then when the players age out, they will retire. Another player will take their spot. All of my cards have serial numbers on them. So you'll see, if I could get it on the camera, this guy is 1108 and he's in season 1. So when we get into season 2, that little 1 will change to a 2, but this number will stay the same. When he retires, that number will become a 2108, and that means that it's the second player in that line, and then they'll start with a 1, saying that's season 1 for that new player's card. So your teams and your players, not so much your teams, your players will evolve. I think there's one thing that's a big difference between my game and some of the other fictional games. My team development or how your teams evolve is completely up to you. I start you off with the roster. I start you off, and all the players have points. So your teams are going to have a budget, and I actually can show you that. I have my books have the schedule on it. So this is all the games. Sorry, I'm trying to get a good angle. And then this is your roster. So each game that you get starting out with season 1 will have an entire 25-man roster. It will have the points on there, how many years that they're contracted to. But once those players become free agents, it's up to you to say if they're going to resign or if they're going to sign with another team.
Wow.
So the teams evolve how you dictate. And we got some great leagues out there. We got the DBBL, which is Ray. He's in the chat here. We got the ABL with Edward. He's going to kill me if I can't remember the name of his league. I think the UBF with Adam. All these players, and some of them are in season 2, and they've started to have roster movement with their players. So you're starting to see like guys that were on one team one year on a new team next year, but they dictated it. And one league is going to be different from the next. So Adam's league is going to evolve differently than how Ray's league is going to evolve. And It's completely up to you. And I kind of, for myself, I'm kind of like the line that you can call, the helpline. So if anybody ever has a question, I try to make myself available. Like if somebody wants to do a trade or something, they'll usually bounce it off, and I'll play devil's advocate. I'll be the other team. Like I want like 5 prospects. Give me 5 prospects, and I'll give you Dave Bryant from the Bulls. Like, and I know all these players from the teams that they start out with. It's kind of crazy. It's probably why I can't remember the grocery list when I go to the store for my wife.
Oh, I hear you.
But I mean, it's just how all that evolves. And we could dive more into the fictional later, but for the historical stuff, I started out with, 3 different sets. One was a pro starter set, and that had, teams that kind of combined from 2 different types of sets. My best of the best, history's best of the best, will put together the best teams throughout the game's history, and we have a lot of history to pull from, and that will have 8 teams in it, and they usually have between 22 and 23 what I call qualifying players. I try to put players that even if they didn't have a lot of at-bats, if they, contributed to the team, I try to make sure I sneak them in kind of like as a bonus. So you're talking like Shane Spencer from the Yankees that year when he came up and hit 10 home runs and like 60 at-bats or whatever it was. Kevin Mott, I keep naming Yankees, but there are other players from other teams that contributed, right? Sure. So I try to make sure I sneak those in. So that's the history's best of the best. You're getting 8 teams per set there, 22, sometimes 23 players. My other sets are the playoff replays. So this was where my knowledge, knowing that the community really loves these replay projects, came in without being able to actually provide an entire season set. My playoff replay sets will have an entire playoff from a given year. So if I bring up like playoff replay set number 1, you're going to have the World Series teams from 1961, which is going to be the Yankees and the Reds. And then you're going to have the 1986 entire playoff bracket. So you're talking the Red Sox, the Mets, the Astros, Angels, right? 1986, yeah, Angels. Yeah. So you're talking those 4 teams plus those 2 teams. So you get 6 teams, and those teams include the entire playoff roster. That's why there's less teams in the playoff replay sets than there is in the best of the best, because you're getting the entire roster for that postseason for each one of those teams. So that's the playoff replay. And then the starter set combines those 2 sets. So you're going to get like 4 teams that would be considered history's best of the best sets, and then 2 teams, which would be the 1975 World Series. So you're talking Reds and Red Sox in that set. Okay. So that's the sets that are available there. And then, of course, the 1961 full season set, which you can get. It is retired now, and I did that purposely because it is a monster to put together. And a lot of people asked, if there's still a market for it, why would I retire it? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, it definitely served its purpose. It brought attention to the game, which for me means a lot. But also it takes away from my ability to do other projects. When I'm printing all this, and I'm not just the creator or the designer, I'm also the producer. I don't have anybody else that prints it. I have 3 printers over here that I'm killing day by day. And I'm probably, I think, up to my 11th printer now. And I use a printer that's 15 years old because it's the only thing that will work for these cards. So I have to find them refurbished on eBay like every 6 months because I'm destroying these things. But it takes away my ability to create new sets. So I wanted to be able to retire it just so I could work on other projects. And that doesn't mean that it's never going to come back. Kind of like Disney, how they do the Vault, right? They'll release Bambi every 15 years. It's not going to be that long. But, I had to be able to put it aside so I could do other things just to be able to concentrate on bringing more sets that I know teams of people that are going to want to see. So that's one of the reasons for that. But that set does come with a couple of different options. You could buy either just the American League, you buy just the National League. And when you do those 2 leagues, they're going to come with 25-man rosters. But if you get the extra players, that will fill you up with every single player that came up and played in that uniform for that team. There are some players, it's 98% of the players that came up are carded. I wasn't going to card somebody who only had 1 at bat or pitched like a third of an inning. It just didn't make sense from that standpoint. But pretty much everybody is carded for the 1961 season set.
Okay. So let's dive into a little bit of, and guess who is here? Let's welcome Marco. How are you, Marco?
Hey, how's it going, gentlemen?
Good. How are you?
We're just talking a little bit about Ian's game.
Oh, very cool. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, Ian, but I've seen some videos and whatnot. It looks awesome.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So if it's okay, Marco, I just want to keep diving in a couple of things here and bring you in conversation-wise into these, because I know I did introduce you before the show started earlier. Talked about how I first started watching YouTube videos when I first got back into this. Maybe I don't know how long ago it was, but when I first got back into YouTube and found YouTube videos of us, I found you. And your energy level and your excitement of your replays, I was like, man, there is somebody else like me. And
I appreciate that
stuff. And I love that you actually helped get me into soccer a little bit more, which I've always kind of not been kind of on the edge. And so I used to make fun of it. Another 0-0 game.
Don't let Dave Gardner hear you, because he gives me crap all the time about that.
I know he does. But I threw that. My nephew is a gigantic soccer fan. He's into EPL hugely, and so I'm always teasing him about it. And then I watched Sunderland and I was like, you know what? The European, and I spent time over in when I was in the military over in England, so I kind of got a feel for this in the 80s. But the level, when you watch Sunderland, the level of passion of a European soccer fan makes, I think I made this comment the other day to someone, makes the Philadelphia Eagles fans look like they're at Disney. The passion of, and I being a Cleveland fan, you being a Chicago fan, Marco, and Ian being a New York guy, that we all have different fan bases, the three of us, I think, unique, different kinds of fan bases that we have. Mine has long been drug across, been made fun of forever. And we got one championship in my 59 years on this earth. One, and Ian's laughing because I got one last week.
At least you got one.
And and then you got Chicago, who of course went through the years of, and I'm going way off on a tangent here about our fan bases, but you got Chicago with the years of Jordan that you guys had, and then of course you had the Bears with the defense, the monster defense in '85 and winning the Super Bowl, and then you got your Blackhawks who have had so you've had 4. And I haven't even touched on the Cubs and the White Sox. And I know you're a Cubs fan, not a White Sox fan. But, and then, of course, your guys beat my Indians in 2016. We'll talk about that later. But, we're Heartbreak City, where Ian is Championship City. And
unless you're a Giants fan right now.
Yeah. You know, but you
Boy,
still
oh
have
boy.
championships. You know how many championships my Browns have?
Well,
But we can talk about NFL championships before the Super Bowl, and we've got more than anybody else, but that doesn't matter. But and then you got Marco, who I think that their fan base, they got spoiled with Jordan. You got spoiled with Jordan. But after that, now you guys, when the Cubs won, it was like a huge deal. I'm quite sure.
Yep.
You know, and so you're not. I wouldn't consider you guys championship city, even though Jordan's put a ton of trophies up there, like New York is. But I think it makes us three unique bases. And what are your thoughts on that?
No, you know what? I could talk about this all day. I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. The Chicago, I would sort of put us somewhere between New York and Cleveland, if we're being honest, because here's the thing, right? Like we had the Bulls. That was a little bit before my time, just a tad, but we had the Bulls. But what I would say is, and the Blackhawks are interesting for a similar reason. You have a lot of people in this city that prior to the Bulls did not care about basketball. And you had a lot of people in this city prior to, now the Hawks had their good teams over the years and good players and, you know, Tony Amane, Chris Chelios, not even talking about the guys from the 60s like Bobby Hall and Stan Mikita, but it was an acquired taste. You didn't see people. I tell this story all the time. When I grew up, I didn't have any Blackhawks fans friends. I'm being serious. I was a Blackhawks fan because my family liked hockey. I went to school with more kids wearing Yzerman Red Wings jerseys than Blackhawks jerseys. And then all of a sudden, when the Hawks get on their run, everyone's a Hawks fan. This city loves a winner. That's how it is. You know,
what city doesn't?
Yeah.
True. But what I will say is, and I'm decked out for those who are, you know, watching on video. I'm decked out in all Bears
stuff. Is there a game that you have coming up or something?
Yeah, there's a pretty big game tomorrow. But what I will say is, you know, baseball divides Chicago. And I got there used to be a billboard when you're driving into the city that said this: baseball shall divide Chicago, but the Bears will unite it. When the Bears are good, and in my lifetime, I was born in 90, so that gives away my age. In my lifetime, we had 2006, which we lost in the Super Bowl. We had 2010, which we lost in the NFC Championship game. And we had 2018, which was the double doink. That's it in 35 years. That's it. That's all we have. So when this team's good, and especially a team like this year that came out of nowhere, we expected to be pretty good, but not this. The city is on fire. You can't go to a grocery store without the checkout clerk saying, "How do you feel about tomorrow? You ready? You ready?" I mean, everybody from the people at my daughter's daycare to the grocery store to my coworkers, it's all anyone is thinking about. It's Da Bears. Yeah, we don't have a, you know, what I would say is, and New York fans kind of feel like this now, I would imagine, where we have had our runs, but in between those runs, there have been some serious droughts. So when the droughts kind of end, like even the Blackhawks dynasty, the last championship is already 11 years ago. 11 years. That's a half a generation that has no idea what it's like when the Hawks are good. Yeah. The Bulls' last championship was 98. We're going on 30 years, right? The Bears, this year's the 40-year anniversary of that 85 team. The Cubs, this is the 10-year anniversary of the Cubs
already.
Here we are. Like we go through these spurts of really good teams and then nothing for a long time. Hopefully that changes.
You bring up a really interesting thing. I want to get each of your perspectives, and I'll give mine because we're kind of representing our cities here. And yes, I feel like we're three unique setups. I think everybody falls into one of our categories. So let me ask you this: for your cities, I don't know if you've ever heard this before. Is it a baseball town, or is it a football town, or is it a basketball town? Which one, if there was a poll for the city and its fan base, who wins? And I'll start with you, Ian. Is it a Yankee town? Is it baseball? Is it the Yankees and Mets? What is the passion in the end?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's more baseball, and Yeah, probably mostly Yankee. And I think a lot of it just has to do with like the global phenomenon that is this logo that's on my head.
Yeah.
Like that has a lot to do with it.
The amount of championships. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, that
What is it,
doesn't hurt,
27
right?
now or whatever.
Yeah. And you know, that weighs in a lot. I mean, you have the Mets, but the Mets are kind of like, if you're from Long Island, you're a Mets fan. I mean, that's just kind of, I guess, how it works. And then you tie in football to it.
Mets and Jets, right?
It's Mets and Jets and Yankees and Giants. Yeah. And, you know, it kind of has that combination there. And it's funny because I'm a Yankee fan because my dad was a Mets fan. Like I almost became a Yankee fan because in spite of him, and it wasn't really like a big competitive thing between him and I, but I kind of got tired of going to Mets games. So I wanted to start going to Yankee games. And that's just kind of how it was for me. I never really paid attention to hockey. I don't really think hockey had like a large following. I mean, we did have those years where you had Richter and Messier and, you know, those good years. And then New Jersey had some good years with the Devils and Islanders. I don't know, they kind of existed. So it's just like, it's more baseball than anything else. I mean, of course, with the Knicks and, you know, we lost on the layup, you know, that kind of stuff. They had some of their good years also, but I would say baseball is probably what it is. I mean, if you're listening to sports radio in New York and you're listening to WFAN and you're going down to LIE, they're talking Yankees 80% of the time.
Yeah. So it's definitely a baseball town.
Yeah. I would say baseball. Yeah.
How about Chicago? I know it's a Bears town right now today. But if you ask everybody one championship they can have the rest of their life, who do they want?
Super Bowl. It's a football town. If I would rank the teams like so, and I'm completely not biased because everyone knows I'm a giant Cub fan. It's the Bears, it's the Cubs, probably 20, 30 points behind them. Probably the Blackhawks, Bulls, depending who's winning right now, another 30 points behind them. Then it's the White Sox. But the thing about the White Sox is if you go south of Roosevelt Road, that's sort of the dividing line, it flips. It's 80% Sox fans and 20% Cub fans. And then that's really it. The Bears are number one. Cubs are two. I would say Hawks, Bulls tied for three and the Sox 4. But, you know, the Sox and Cubs, like when the city really gets up when they're good too, but there is literally nothing like when the Bears are good.
You know, it's really funny because when the White Sox went back to their older logo in like 95 through 98 or whatever it was, I had a White Sox jacket. I had a White Sox starter jacket and I would wear it to high school. I was still a Yankee fan, but it was part of that logo, I think, really started kind of igniting that fan base a little bit. And like, you know, they had Frank Thomas at the time and, you know, all those great players.
I'll tell you what it was.
Nicely. Go ahead, Marco.
No, I'll tell you what it was. It was actually because you still see it today. It's hip hop culture that did that. If you look, it's all the hip hop artists for whatever reason.
Right.
I have a Sox hat. I just think it's a cool hat. Like I won't wear it in public. I can't believe I just admitted that, but it's a cool hat. It is very clean. You know, the Cubs are like a cartoon happy team. The Sox are always the little brother who's mad all the time, and rightfully so. You know.
Yeah. Well, I'll represent Cleveland now, and I don't know if this is going to shock anybody, but it's not even close. It is a football town, first and foremost. And yeah, we had LeBron. Yep, in my 59 years, I got one championship, and LeBron brought it as he promised. But you know, the Indians have been to the World Series, and the Guardians, Indians have been to the World Series 4 times in my lifetime and lost all 4. But you talk about points between the difference, Marco. It's Browns 100, Indians 3, Cavaliers 1, and that is that city. And whoever wins a Super Bowl, maybe even just gets there because we haven't even been there. Whoever wins a Super Bowl in Cleveland, the statues that will go around that town for the coach, for the quarterback, for any player on that team will be out of this world craziness. They may take a month off in that city to celebrate because the Browns, you know, I talk about play games a lot, and I talk about how Keith can put out tic-tac-toe tomorrow and everybody will go buy it because, you know, there's just such a cult following to play games. Well, as we see with the Browns right now, and now I'm getting way off into a tangent here on my team, but they can do anything and the place will be sold out tomorrow morning. and they can sell that fan base, and I'm part of this fan base. They can sell that fan base tomorrow morning that we're going to put a female in at quarterback, and I'm telling you, she's good. And they will go, okay, we're good. Now, of course, they're going to wake up after game one when she's sacked 18 times and can't play, and they're going to want her out. But they will buy anything. They will be upset as can be at the end of the season like they are right now. But it will all start to go away in January and February. We're starting to get excited about the draft in March, and then we're going to make a draft, and then we're going to be so excited about those guys. And by August, we're winning the Super Bowl this year. And then by September, after 2 games, we know we're not. But that's that fan base goes through that every single time, and it's without question a football town.
I wanted to ask you something, John, because I've always wondered this from the Cleveland fan perspective. Do you just hate the Ravens more than any other team because they took that franchise right when they were going to become a championship caliber team? I've always felt gutted for Cleveland because of that.
I think sometimes I have a different attitude about, and I think I've talked about this on another podcast about Ohio State, Michigan. I don't hate Michigan. I'm very few because I think actually that hurts Ohio State every single season, making more of a big deal about that game than it needs to be. It fires up Michigan, it fires up their fan base, and that team is half as good as Ohio State. And now these kids have so much pressure on them. They got to go out and win that game. And you look at this year, there are Ohio State fans that are happy as can be more this year than they were last year. And they won the national championship last year, but they lost to Michigan. This year they beat Michigan. They lost in the first round of the playoffs. And people are happy. And I'm like, dude, we're in this to win it all, not to win Michigan. So going to your question about Baltimore, I have friends, tons of friends, grew up there. I don't live there anymore, but I grew up there, and my family's all still there. I'd say half hate Baltimore, half hate Pittsburgh. And all of them laugh at Cincinnati, despite, Joe Burrow being there. We beat him constantly. I think we're 8-1 against Joe Burrow. But despite how bad we are, we always beat Joe Burrow. And even beat him at the end of this year, last game of the season. They played all the regulars. Right. We still beat them. And only won 4 games this year. Still beat Joe Burrow at full and a chase on the field. Anyway, so we don't really worry about Cincinnati. And by the way, it's the only coach left in the AFC North this year. Everybody else fired their head coach. But anyway, going back to that, I did have a lot of hatred, not really toward Baltimore, but of course toward Art Modell, who did move the team. He was the owner. But what nobody talks about, I don't even hear from Cleveland fans, and I wonder if you guys know this, who was the head coach that caused them to move? Because they were horrible. And he couldn't get the city to buy it, to put in a new stadium because the team was horrible and they weren't playing well. They were great in the 80s under Marty Schottenheimer. And then somebody came in and would really ruin
I know
team.
who it was.
Absolutely ruin it. Yeah. Who was it?
Belichick.
Yep. Bill Belichick ruined the team. Yeah. That's who I hate.
Belichick.
And then that idiot went off to New England and decided, let's win a couple of Super Bowls. And
I hate Belichick.
And by the way, his defensive coordinator was Nick Saban.
Yes, it was. Do you know he had all-star team? Do you know who his defensive coach was? Bill Cowher.
That's right. And I think Jim Schwartz as well, who ended up being the Lions head coach years later.
He had an all-star staff and still couldn't win in Cleveland. And of course he used that. He was a young guy and he used all that experience, went off to New England and won. So I hate him the most of all. I blame him the most of all. No, not this isn't what most Cleveland fans feel, but I feel like he was at most fault. He traded away Bernie Kosar. He made that decision to trade away Bernie Kosar to Dallas. He, in my opinion, ruined the Browns and then left Modell with no, the city. Then of course we can get into the whole show on that. But anyway, my hatred is neither one of those teams, Pittsburgh or that. It's I hate New England. That's the team I hate the most because they had Belichick, because he went there and won and finally decided he knew how to coach, or at least he found some quarterback who helped him get there. We can have a whole nother show on that one. But yeah, that I grew up, you talk about, the heartbreaks you've had in Chicago there. New York doesn't get to talk about heartbreaks because they haven't had them. But the heartbreaks in Chicago. I went through the Elway years, and he beat us 3 times in a row. We had the fumble and we had the drive, and then my first one when I was 12 years old was Red Right 88, which was Brian Sipe throwing a pass into the end zone against the Oakland Raiders and should never have thrown it. Cockcroft would have hit that field goal 99 out of 100 times, although we're talking about Cleveland. You might have missed it. But, hopefully it wouldn't be a double doink, though, right? But, yeah. So, I mean,
it still hurts. Still hurts.
Been on the edge of the Super Bowl. But the worst part of all that, and Denver is also, and I live here in Colorado now, Denver is also probably my number 2 hated team. And my daughter's favorite team. She grew up here. Those games hurt the most to me, and those are the things that stick with me. But yeah, so it galvanizes, and we can talk about part of the reasons why I get into a lot of my gaming is to try and correct history, because there's bad things that have happened to me over the years. I need to correct them. Although I got to tell you, many times I'm scared to pick up those sets because what if it happens again? And I got to relive it.
Yeah.
I don't think I could take Elway going down the field on me. I really don't think I could. Hey, I want to talk a little bit about just to kind of get the show kind of back on a track here a little bit. I want to talk about fictional leagues, and I know this is a passion of Ian's, but I don't know from your point, Marco, whether have you dove into fictional?
Oh yeah, no, I would say more than 85% of my gaming is fictional at this point.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And
So
a specific sport or
all of
here we go.
all of the above.
What's
all
the
the above. Picking a favorite game's like picking a favorite kid. You love them all for very different reasons, So
Sure.
we don't have to get into that. I think everybody understands that.
No, I meant sport.
Favorite sport to play on the tabletop?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I think baseball, but again, I think it depends on the game too. Like there are things I love about, I'll say this. I know what games are the hardest to do on the tabletop. So when I find games that do it right, I really cling to them. Football to me is so hard to do on the tabletop just because it's, an oblong shaped ball on a weird surface, right? That could wind and snow and this and that. It's so hard to replicate. I tell this story all the time, and I cannot remember the game that I was playing with, but I always wanted to do an 85 Bears season replay. And I started it. I got into the season. I'm 3 games into the season, and the Bears are 1-2. I'm like, this is not possible. And I just quit it right there. So it is just such a hard game to capture. I think basketball is getting better at getting captured on the tabletop. Hockey can be hard. Again, same thing. Ice, weird breaks, bounces, things. But in terms of like favorite, just like that comfort food, the very first game that got me into tabletop gaming was Stratomatic baseball. So anything I could find with baseball that scratches that itch, I mean, you can ask me next week. I might have a different answer for you. Another game I just found recently, oh my God, what is it called? Deep Drive Baseball. Fantastic little game. Great game. History Maker Baseball, obviously, there's too many to count. But yeah, I would say baseball is the one that I go back to most frequently, just comfort food.
Do you play that fictionally? Go ahead.
I was going to say the thing about football, I get asked all the time if I'm ever going to make a football game. And I've actually gone to the table and I've tried creating something that I could use to similar mechanics that I have for my baseball game and convert it into football. And I had a great idea, what I considered like a genius idea to put it together. Started trying to figure out how to play this game, and it turned out it would have been like a 3-hour game. And like in my eyes, and John and I spoke about this a little bit off camera earlier, like if I can't finish a game in like 45 minutes, to me, it's not worth playing. Like it just takes too much time, aside from like the time investment away from my family, anything else I have to do. I don't know that my attention span can last that long to play a game. Like I have to be able to have, something come to a resolution within that time frame, or I'm just toast, So I gave up on it.
Let me ask you this: have you ever played? And I know Ian hasn't, but Marco, have you played Highlight Maker Hoops?
I have. I love it. It's great.
Okay. I was just telling. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I think, and again, I could spend 2 hours on this. I don't mean to suck all the oxygen out of the room, but I think
No.
a lot of my gaming, especially now being a new dad, a lot of it is like, okay, I don't have time for a 2 hour game. I just don't,
Yeah.
especially if I want to roll through a season. But last night's a great example. I played bank shot basketball. I knew I was in for a 2 hour, 2.5 hour experience.
Oh, yeah.
Which it's a phenomenal game, but I'm in the middle of this game, and it is a fantastic game. I love it so much. I'm not in any way criticizing it, but I'm halfway through this game, and I start thinking to myself, because it was a blowout, and I start thinking to myself, man, I wish I was playing something else. Like I had this 2 hour window where my daughter went to bed, and it's dark out, and it's just me, and I'm like, man, I wish I would have just taken out History Maker Baseball and got back to my fictional league, because I know in the 2 hours I just spent, I would knock out 3 to 4 games and be deeper in my season.
That's exactly the conversation Ian and I had earlier, was because this morning, well, let me back up to yesterday. I told this already to Ian, but let me back up to yesterday. I just got the Blam set, the Basketball League of America finally came out, and I'm in a league, and I didn't get it last year. So I joined the league this year. I know nothing about those players. It's all fictional. It's another reason I want to talk about the fictional. So I'm running New Jersey, and so I decided to grab 2 teams yesterday because the set came in yesterday. I decided to bring it in, and they're only using the primetime. And if for anybody who doesn't know, there's 2 versions of the history maker hoops. One is a kind of a fast play, and then the other, the primetime, is a full play. And so I had played it many times before, but I hadn't played it in probably a year. And so popped it back out. I'm not still sitting right here on the desktop as we're talking. And so I figure, okay, let me, it's fictional, and we'll get into the whole talk about fictional. So I don't know any of these players. I got to figure out what I got on New Jersey, because I'm not just looking at a card that says Jordan or Bird or whatever, and know who goes in the starting lineup. I talked about this on my other show, which was that you need to know the game and how it works for fictional. That's one of the things about fictional. I knew the cards looking at them, who was probably pretty good and who wasn't. So I tried to make it based on that. And so I pop it out yesterday, and I got about an hour and a half into the game because my grandson came. I knew he was coming. I knew I had about an hour and a half. I made it to halftime, Marco. Halftime. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to take forever. I don't remember the game being this long. And so then I thought, okay, I got grandkids coming over again today. And we're going to do the show. I said, I'm going to get up at 6:30 and finish that game. It's got to finish. 2 hours later, it took me to play the second half. That's a 3.5 hour game. And I don't remember Highlight Maker Hoops taking that long. Maybe I was just spending time on my guys and looking at them, but that took forever. But I want to talk about what you said, because what you said resonated in there. By halftime, my New Jersey team was down by 25 to this Cincinnati team. And I'm learning about the players, and the one guy is and I'm actually doing, this is probably what took so long, that we have a little Blam Facebook group. And I'm kind of telling them what's going on, because some of those are waiting for the cards, and they're like, hey, some of those guys are still waiting for him to come. I'm here in Colorado, so I'm lucky. Keith stuff comes to me in a day.
I was gonna say, you can pick it up at his house, or
he's actually said to me a couple of times, why don't we just have coffee and you come grab them? Which I'm gonna do one day. I'm about 35, 40 minutes away from Keith. But the center for Cincinnati starts going nuts, and it's hitting 3-pointers everywhere, and you get 30 points at halftime. And I'm telling these guys in the chat, and they're all like, he wasn't very good last year. And to Ian's point about how Ian incrementals his players and makes them better the year on the fictional, they're all living through me. They're like, oh my God, let's see his card. So I took a picture of the card, put it in the chat. And then I have a rookie that these guys don't even know from last year. And they're like, oh my, and he, in the second half, because going back to, I'm thinking, man, did I just waste 2 hours yesterday of my time? Am I going to waste 2 hours this morning? They came back. They came back and won.
Oh, wow.
I got all the way to the end, of the game, and I had to do the final minute showdown that the game has.
Yeah.
Because it was a 1-point game. Cincinnati's winning by 1. So we did the final minute. They hit a bucket. I hit a bucket. They hit a bucket. I hit a bucket. And they missed theirs with 3 seconds left. And I ended up winning by 1 point. It was like 117, 116,
Nice.
something like that. My rookie had 38. He almost had a triple double. And I'm like, I'm in love with this dude already. It's like, and so, I want to kick off our whole fictional section because I swore off fictional. I'm like, why are you going to spend an hour playing a game, even 15 minutes playing a baseball game with fictional characters? I want to see Joe Rudy. I want to see Raleigh Fingers. I want to see, Catfish Hunter. I want to see all these guys. Now I'm doing what Ian does. I'm only mentioning Oakland players, but because that was one of my favorite teams back then. Johnny Bench. I want those guys on my tabletop. I want to relive those moments. And so I was like, man, guys who do fictional are wasting their time. And then the XHL set came out for hockey.
Yeah.
And that whole idea, that 2-point goal, and I'm trying to learn hockey, and hockey has become kind of one of my favorite sports. And that XHL, timing, like Keith's in my house figuring out shit sometimes, I swear. And he popped that set out, and I got into that fictional league, and he gave me that hybrid approach because he added those NHL free agents that you could add to it. Mm-hmm. And that gave me that hybrid to say, let me try this out. And I fell in love with Steve Sims, who's a player on and he made a Cleveland team, by the way. We can get into that in a minute because Cleveland doesn't have hockey since the 70s. I was like, I got to have this set because of Cleveland. So that was another thing that drew me in. And I started playing that. I was like, you know what? I don't have any expectations in this game. I don't have an expectation between Cleveland and Baltimore or Cleveland and Indianapolis, another team in the XHL. I don't have any expectations how many goals Steve Sims supposed to hit in a season. I can mark that he had a hat trick, and nobody's going to go, well, he would never have a hat trick. Guess what? You don't know that because he's fictional. Yeah. And that's such a huge piece of it. I started to really enjoy it. So I was thinking for you guys, talk about your fictional love, why you go fictional, and why it's a difference maker for you. I'll start with you, Marco. Talk about it. And do you do it for soccer, by the way?
I do it for everything. I'm almost fictional across the board at this point, except for little projects. So like the bank shop basketball game I was playing last night, I just wanted to play a quick, again, I'm a little bit on the younger side. So for me, like a vintage season is like early 2000s, 2010, something like that. Just because it's what I like. Those are the players I really
That's
remember.
Your window.
I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I was born in 79, so.
And I'm 66.
Yeah,
I'm throwing it out there. I'm completely different here.
Yeah. So like I'll say this. When I first started in the hobby, I didn't know any of this existed. I was a video game kid. I loved and breathed sports. But I always wanted like a manager game, right? Like, or front office game. So my gateway was Out of the Park baseball. And then I'm like, oh, they have a card and dice version of this. I never wanted to do replays. What I originally wanted to do was buy the Stratomatic. 2016 was the first year I bought. Can't imagine why I would buy that season for the Cubs.
That year didn't happen.
Yeah, but sorry, I keep forgetting. I'm sorry. I don't mean to rub salt in the wound. No, by the way, quick sidebar. My bowels have never exited my body faster than the Rajay Davis home run. I'm just saying. Oh my God. Like my life flashed before my eyes.
I think I broke my kneecap on the table when he hit it and I jumped.
I'm telling you, from the Chicago perspective, my entire family, aunts, uncle, I'm sorry, I'm going on all these side quests, but my grandfather, I've told this story before. It's my favorite story ever. My grandfather is an immigrant from Italy. That's why got the Italy Cup, and good stuff. He came here in 1959, the summer. Didn't know anything. He knew soccer, but had no idea what baseball, nothing. And one night he's laying in his bed and he starts hearing what he thinks are gunshots. He grew up in war-torn Italy, in Calabria, okay? He comes running outside. He sees people in the streets dancing. And he's looking around. He's like, what the hell is going on? And he sees fireworks and this and that. It's around September, October. his buddy comes running up to him and goes, "Ah, you so happy?" And he goes, "What the hell is going on?" And he goes, his buddy says, "Well, the White Sox, they won they won the pennant. They're going to the World Series." My no looks at him and goes, "What the hell is a White Sox?" And the guy looks at him and goes, "Oh, you must be a Cubs fan." That day he became a Cubs fan.
Oh,
That's
is a
funny.
great story.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
a
is how
great
I became
story.
a Cubs fan. So I don't know where I was going with that other than like that's where the fandom came from. So I'm at this party with him, who is a diehard Cubs fan since October 1959, because his non-English speaking friend told him, "You must be a Cubs fan." And to say the soul left my grandfather's body when Rajay Davis hit that homer is an understatement. Anyway, to bring it back, sorry about the tangent.
No. We'll bring it back in a second, but I do want to throw something in there that I think is always funny, and that is the confidence of a fan base. And I want to hear Ian's perspective on this too, because okay, and my daughter talks about this a lot with me. She goes, "I am a different kind of fan on the couch when I'm watching a game, when I'm watching a Cleveland team versus Ohio State. I have an expectation of winning when Ohio State's playing, and I don't worry when they get behind. I don't. The Browns could be up by 21, and I'm telling you how they're going to blow it, you know? And so
Yep.
I can only imagine, and I remember exactly where I was in Cape Coral, Florida, when when Rajay hit that. It was in a bar.
Whoa. You were in Cape Coral, Florida?
I've lived there for 13 years.
I lived there for 10 years.
Holy crap.
Yes.
No
From
way.
2000, not quite 10 years, but 2002 until 2009.
Oh, we were there together.
Wow. Look at that. Maybe we ran into each other.
We probably did. That's crazy. So you may even know where the bar is that I was at. I was on, I'm trying to think of the name of it now. I'm not going to screw it up. It was a sports bar all the way at the end of Southwest Cape Coral. And I can't think of the name of the sports bar. It's right on the main road there. So if you're coming from Fort Myers and you go over the bridge,
what is it, El Dorado?
Down there by El Dorado. Yes.
El Dorado. And
I'm gonna remember. We're boring the hell out of Ian here, but
you're not talking about rum.
He's
runners,
a Florida guy, though. What's that?
You're not talking about rum runners? That's all the way down.
No, I know rum runners. That's the other way.
Okay.
It almost hit me, not Dickies, but it's something like that. It's a
Duffy's.
Duffy's. I was at Duffy's for that game. So
wow.
What I wanted to throw out to tie this all together is inside there, because it's Florida, you got Indian fans, right? You got Cubs fans.
Huge Ohio presence down there.
Yeah, along with New York and along with Boston.
Yep.
Huge down there. But in this bar on this day, because it's Cubs and Indians, there are Cub jerseys everywhere. There are Indians jersey, and you were probably there, Marco. But
no, I was up here by that point. But yeah, I was.
Okay.
Yeah, I was up by that point. I was back in Chicago.
You're back in Chicago. So a very unique kind of setting, right? Because you know it's Chicago. It's Florida, and so you got both equal, 50-50 easy. You know, when the Cubs are winning, that place is noisy. When the Indians are winning, that place was noisy. So what I wanted to throw out was how both fan bases are so alike in some way, which is when the Cubs were winning that game and it got into the ninth, I heard the Cubs fans talking about how they were going to blow it. Oh, yeah. There was no doubt we were going to blow this. Rajay Davis hits that home run, and they're all like, "See, told you." Yeah, and some of them went home. Some of them went home, right?
I believe it.
Where on the Indian side, we're all going, well, you know, it was nice to get here yet again. We got screwed, the umps, but everybody's to blame except for our team. Well, I'm sure they're to blame too. Got to fire the coach. And then he hits the home run, and of course, our whole base is like, we're still going to blow this game. We're still going to blow this game. And the Cubs fans are like, we lost, we're done. So both of us are we're not going to win, even though one team is winning. And then, then you guys ended up taking the lead in the top half of the inning. They went right back to, we're going to blow it in the bottom half. We're going to blow it in the bottom half. Yeah. And that's, it's funny how the two fan bases are. But when I'm in a bar, when it's New York, Ian, and it's the Yankees playing the Indians, the Yankees are like, we're going to come back and kick these guys' asses. and we're like, oh God, these guys
Yeah,
are going to come back.
I mean, I feel like with our fan base, we have two different types of fans in our fan base. We have the fans that are always Yankee fans. We're always pulling for the Yankees, no matter how much we're down by. If we're starting to lose, we're still pulling for them. And then you get like, I have this one friend of mine who's like, I call a toxic Yankee fan. And if they're starting to blow the games, and unfortunately, the last 3 or 4 years, we always get a span where there's like a month where we just can't win a freaking game. And they start saying, oh, we got to fire everybody. Trade this guy. He's a clown. And it always is like around Chisholm also lately. And I like Chisholm. I mean, he's 30-30 guy. But anyway, they start tearing it apart. And I'm like, look, man, like you're either a fan, you're going to root for this team, or just like start being a Tampa Bay Rays fan. I'm in Florida too,
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, come on, like you're a Yankee fan, root for your team. And I know it's hard sometimes. I mean, luckily for us, we got it easier than other teams. We're in the playoffs most of the time. Like sometimes you're almost spoiled to the point where like you just expect it, and it's not going to happen every single year.
Does that roll over onto the tabletop at all for you, Marco, to go have the Cubs out or the Bears, maybe not the 85 Bears, but to have the Bears out and go, they're going to blow this game. They're going to blow this game.
So I'll be honest with you, and I cannot wait until this season comes out, because this particular Bears team with 7, and maybe tomorrow will be 8, who knows, but 7 fourth quarter comebacks trailing by 6 or more points this year. Yeah. How do you replicate that on the tabletop? Because I can't tell you guys how many seasons or games that I've started where I've taken either the 2016 Cubs are a bad example of this, because they really were the best team that year. So you expect them maybe not dominate, win every game, but you expect them to play 600 baseball or better all season long. And most of the tabletop sims do that. But when it comes to like those tweener years, like this Bears team or some other Cubs teams of years past, I got to be honest with you, most of the time it's not that I'm expecting them to blow it. They're playing from behind to begin with, and I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna get in this. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so your expectations kind of match when they're on the tabletop. They match kind of what you expect from a Chicago.
Totally. Which to tie it back, and I think that's why I'm so into fictional, because
Yep.
I don't know. I must have. There we go. Sorry, I thought I clicked something on my computer. That's why I play mostly fictional, because I don't like having that expectation. I don't like having that. Like I use the 85 Bears example. I don't expect them to go 16-0, but I expect them to be ahead by a touchdown or more in every single game, and that defense is giving up almost nothing, because that's how they played. And if they don't do that, I'm disappointed. I won't shout out the game, because it is a fantastic game, but I decided earlier this fall that I wanted to replay the 06 Bears season, and I got 2 games in and they struggled to stay in the game, and they lost both games. And though they won those games convincingly in real life. So I'm like, I'm not interested in finishing this. I'm not going to sit here through 16 games and maybe they go 8-8 and not make the playoffs. And then what did I do this for? I saw the real thing. They went to the Super Bowl.
No, that's interesting. You talk about that, because I'm replaying that whole Red Right 88 season, and the Browns, who Brian Syke was the MVP that year, only MVP in Cleveland's history, threw for over 4,000 yards, and the guy can't find the line of scrimmage in the first 4 games. And it's really, because we don't get many good teams in Cleveland, and now you're going to give me an 0-4 1981 Browns team? Come on. No. You got plenty of seasons to make me 0-4. This is not one of them. And so, it doesn't piss me off about the game. It's like, man, my dice suck sometimes, and it's like, because I look at all the other results, because I don't just play one team, I play them all. And so I look at all the other results and go, this game is kicking out good stuff. The right teams are where they belong, except for the Browns. And so I know it's just, I'm getting bad rolls, and they can turn it around, and it's interesting to see if they do, because I'm going to keep playing that. But I feel you on that. It's like, man, I have an expectation. So fictional does not create, and I'm going to put a word in here yet, a expectation. But I want to start with Ian because he's got a fictional setup that is very unique that I don't think you got to hear about too much, Marco. So if you want to recap that, Ian, how your fictional is set up on your baseball game. Do you think there's going to become, because you put out seasons and those players progress, do you think that eventually maybe there will be an expectation of players or teams?
I think, especially for my game, because you have the scouting ratings on the players' cards, and you see how the player would have performed in season 1. When you're going to season 2, you have a better idea of where that player is going to be. But I don't think the expectation is so strong to the part where you're going to expect that player to replicate the exact season that he just had. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
I feel like, your players are going to evolve over the course of the seasons, and it's going to be so minute that they evolve, because you're not going to go from like a nobody to a stud over the course of one off season, right? So you're going to have a guy who's going to hit, 20 to 30 home runs. He's going to do that for a consecutive amount of years, typically. And that's, that correlates to what my game, produces. So, I mean, as far as like your expectations, you kind of know what the player is going to be able to do, especially when you get more familiar with the mechanics in the game, like you spoke to earlier on. Like, it's so important to know how these mechanics work in the game that you're going to play for fictional, because you don't know what the player, you don't know, there's no Ozzie Smith. So you don't know that this player is going to be great turning double plays and stuff like that until you actually get, knee deep into the game and you're playing these mechanics to know that. So I think there's a growth for the person who's playing any particular game in learning each of the players. And that is very heavy in mine. I mean, mine comes with, so many different expansion packs that you could add on. You could add on, up to 12 teams into your league. And these are all players that you have to familiarize with yourself just in that season 1. And then you kind of grow with them as you expand into season 2, season 3, season 4. So I think there is some expectation, but I don't think you're held to it as much as you would be if you start playing like 1986 historically, and then you move into 1987. Like Strawberry hit a certain amount of home runs. He's got to hit that same home run. Like that expectation is not there. I think the expectation for fictional is that you're just expected to be able to build upon a career for a player, and that player is going to evolve throughout that career. So those statistics can vary. I mean, you can have variations. Like you could see like, somebody like Trout, right? He was the best player in the game. He could still probably pop 30 home runs, but his batting average is not going to be over 300 anymore. Like that same kind of thing can happen in fictional. You're just not expecting it to match anything that already exists out there in the world. Does that make sense? Like that kind of thing.
It does. And Marco, do you see that in other games that are fictional based, that you're able to progress those players? Or do you see that it's really a one and done kind of fictional set, like XHL is, for instance? I don't know if Keith's deciding to come out with a second version of it, but that I can't finish a season. Let's say I want to play 50 games and then start another season. Steve Semis, the guy I talked about from Cleveland, is not going to progress bad, or he's going to be the same card. So does that uniqueness like intrigue you, the way that he's doing that?
So this is going to come off as harsh, but I'll say the harsh part up front and then come back with the positive of it. I don't like that, but, and here's the big but. So when I sit down to do a fictional, I call them universes. Okay.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
so History Maker Baseball, just use that as an example. I know that the Baseball America set is whatever, 13, 14 years old now. So I've only been buying it for the past 3 to 4 years. I have an expectation that the team that I'm playing with today, which I'm 3 years in reverse, so I've got 3 years ahead of me plus whatever the new seasons come every year. I know that next year I'm going to get a progression of those players. I also know that I have to be comfortable living in Keith's brain that if he decides that this player goes to that team, I don't get to control that. That player's gone. I don't like that. Personally, I have my own homebrew ways around that. But what I will say is and I've said this before on a different show, I think the last frontier of our hobby and there's a few of them out there. I'll shout out Al Wilson in particular, who's done an amazing job at this. The last frontier for fictional is give me a sandbox, tell me how to make the players, tell me how to draft the teams, tell me how to make a draft pool, let me put my teams together, and then tell me how to progress the players into next year. And then I'll decide how this player goes to that team, that player goes to that team. Because what I started playing with the last year and a half, and it has taken my gaming to another level, is when I sit down and play my universe, I pull out good old ChatGPT and I tell it, I'm like, okay, here's I use Johnny Fortune, right? Baseball America, like the best player of all time of the Baseball America set. I will literally say, okay, speak like you are Wright Thompson. I don't know if you know who Wright Thompson is. He's a really, really good sports writer. He's been on ESPN, writes for a bunch of different publications. I love his writing style. So I'll tell ChatGPT, all right, pretend you are Wright Thompson. I am Johnny Fortune. Let's sit down and do an interview with me. Ask me where I'm from. Ask me what my upbringing was like, what it's like playing for the St. Louis Blues. That's the team in my fictional universe. And it starts, ChatGPT starts spitting out articles. So I now have this growing universe of this is, what actually started was History Maker Golf. And I have this whole universe now that I'm a couple seasons in where this player just won his first major. And I can go back into my archive and look at what stories did I write about Rance Aberlay and what did I come up with about his bio and what did ChatGPT write about him. And now it's like Rance Aberlay is a living, breathing person with kids that don't exist, a wife that doesn't exist. And for me, I've built this entire universe that this person is just as real as LeBron James on the TV, because I've never met that guy. I've never met Johnny Fortune, but they're the same because in his universe, even though he only exists on my tabletop, he is the greatest baseball player of all time. Why not?
Yeah. I think that
do it.
I think that's you hit on a great point, because I spoke earlier with John. Like, there's a player and I still have the card out. Like, I can't stand this guy. His name is Joe Glenn, and I think he's arrogant. Like, I just don't like him. But he's one of the good players on the Phantoms. I mean, he's a contact hitter. He has some pop. I just can't stand him. And there's other guys out there, like in the On Deck Baseball community page. Ray puts together stories for every single gameplay that he does, and all of his characters have stories. Adam has 2 commentators that joke back and forth and do interviews with their players. Like, the fictional universe just allows itself to carry on in so many different directions that even people that are playing the same game, especially like On Deck Baseball, like the stories are going to evolve differently. And, you know, for mine, I can't speak to other games, but for mine, when you're starting out with your team and those teams evolve under your own control, like mine doesn't work like History Maker Baseball, which I haven't played, but I've heard great things about. In my game, you're developing and evolving your own teams. Like, you start out with contracts for the teams that I give you, but those contracts are, you know, some of the players are up after the first year, some of them up at the second. The longest contracts go 5 years. It's up to you on how you're going to do that player movement and how those teams are going to evolve. And the people in the community that create stories around this, like, they're bouncing ideas back and forth with me, free agents or trades or whatever, but they build up entire recaps and they post it. And some of the stuff that is put in this community blows my mind, because I created a game, but I am no writer. And I have a pretty good imagination. I mean, I created these players, but I can't come up with the stuff that these guys put together in the community. It's amazing. Like, it really is. Like, I have no other words for it. And following the stories, Adam and Ray, they're both in their second season of On Deck Baseball. And to see how the players have progressed and how the teams have progressed, it's truly phenomenal. Like, it's an amazing thing. And when I got into this, and like you, Marco, I was never a part of this community and didn't know this community existed until I brought this game to market. Knowing that the creativity that exists in this community, especially when it's taken part with my game, is just phenomenal. Like, it's amazing to see, and what the game can create within it.
You sold me. I gotta buy the game now. That sounds awesome. It really does.
Send me a message. We'll talk.
Of course.
You know, Ian, you talked a little bit beforehand, before Marco got here, about how your off season works, which is unique to the history maker baseball. Where, as Marco, I think you made a great point about Keith's games, Blam, all of them, all his America games, fictional games. You have to get into Keith's head and figure out, which I kind of like because it's like out of your control. But because like if you look at Major League Baseball, we don't control what happens. The Dodgers just signed yet another player, and
Don't
we
get me
don't
started
control
on that.
I know we can get all pissed off about that, right? But we don't control that, so we don't control Keith unless, of course, you meet him for breakfast and maybe feed him some money. But no, that's whole different. But no, you don't. We don't control how those players progress. But with Ian's game, you're not controlling how the players progress. But Ian, talk a little bit about how you are controlling your roster a little bit more than maybe on History Maker.
I think one of the biggest parts was that if it's going to be your baseball universe, it should be your baseball universe. If you want these teams to evolve certain ways, you should be able to know the strengths and weaknesses of that team. And for the players that are going into the free agent market, you should be able to sign those players that those teams need. And that was a big part of it. If you look at my team, like I have one book, Marco, you can see like I have tons of, you can't even see it. Can you see it? I don't know.
Yeah, we
can.
Yeah,
I see the binders. Yeah.
Yeah, so like this is my Phantoms, all right? And I'm only in season 1 because I do all this other stuff. I don't have a chance to play out mine, but there are several people that are in season 2, and I think there's 3 people out there that don't really post that much that are actually into season 3 right now. But like, you start out with your rosters, and these guys are signed for a certain, it's hard to do with the light, but certain amount of contract, budget. Every player is going to have your points on it. So your budget goes by points, not by dollars so much. And, you kind of go into the off season and you see what free agents come off of the teams, and you can make trades, and I kind of have ideas that people bounce off of me. And I kind of like I called myself the helpline earlier. Like I'm always trying to stay in touch with these people. And if they need suggestions or if they have any ideas, they could always bounce it off to me. But when you go into the off season and these players become free agents, you can kind of either come up with your own system on how you want to progress with that. But I also do have what I call a free agent helper that's on the website that you could put in like what place the team came into, what the players, the player that they're looking at, what their points are valued at, their win-loss record, whether or not they're going to be like, selling the market or trying to buy market. And then you can actually go through negotiations. I have a 3-step process where you can negotiate with this player and see if the team signs this guy. There's a couple of people out there that do use it. I made that because I needed it for myself. So I didn't necessarily make it for the game that I marketed, but I figured if it's going to work for me, it'll probably work for other people. Other people kind of, do it in a dice roll. So my game comes with 2 D10s. So if they want to sign one player to, a particular team, they'll do a dice roll and maybe all the odd numbers are yes. And then the other die is for the amount of years. So like we have a face-to-face fictional league locally here with 6 people that control the teams locally. So it's all my friends, and we've been playing this game. We're now going into our 3rd season. If schedules allow, we'll eventually get it started. But we do, if you roll, we went into our off season, and if you roll a 1 or a 2, that's 1 year. You roll a 3 or 4, that's 2 years. 5 or 6 is 3 years, and so on and so forth. And then, you base it off of the points. And sometimes we'll do trades. Sometimes we'll sign players. And ours is a draft league. So we're not starting off with the teams that are actually coming in the set that I sell that, is on the market, but we'll draft. We drafted from the entire roster of players for the entire game, except for 2 teams because they didn't exist when we started our league. And, even watching that draft league evolve between us as face-to-face players, like, we're giving I was going to say, bad word, but we're giving people crap every time we're talking about like, what this player is doing. And I had this guy named Mark Haggerty who hit 3 home runs in one game against my, one of my best friends. And he's going to become a free agent. So now he's going to pick him up and he's going to hit 3 home runs against me probably. We play a 30-game season. So, chances are it could happen. So like everything can evolve, but I wanted it to be in the player's hands. I didn't want the universe to be controlled by some external feature. I wanted the players to evolve. But if you're going to have your universe, it should be your own universe. So I want 100%. The teams and the leagues across the entire, community group that I have on Facebook page. Every single person's league evolves differently than the next. So like Dave Bryant started out with, the Bulls on one team. Now he's, I think, on Rays Gators in another league because he made a trade. And then Adams, he had free agents move. So everybody's teams are different in the different leagues across the community. And I think that is to me, that's some of the most fun to watch as a designer, as a creator of the game, is seeing how everybody, first of all, the lineups are different. For my closer for the Phantoms is Enrique Garza, but on some other teams, it's Freddie Washington. It all depends on how you want to do it. And, nothing's set in stone. All the lineups are different, across the different leagues for the different people that play the game. The rotations are different. You learn the strengths and weaknesses for each of your teams. And then you start, looking at free agents for that, making trades for that. You could bring in some of the different players from the rookie sets that I offer, the expansion draft set that I offer, all these different things. And you can get a player roster for your entire league where you're actually able to build a farm system for the teams that you have. So, and you could have your players progressing through the years. And for me, and I'll show you, for the Bulls, their colors are kind of deep purple, if you can see that.
Yep.
But the different rookie sets that I have, one rookie has 75 players that's gray and red, or magenta, as my printer likes to call it, or, gray and blue. So all those rookies are color coded for which set that they come from. And as I have them come up from my farm system for my particular league, I roll a die to see how many years that they're going to sign their pro contract for. But they don't get that pro contract until I have to call them up. And it just so happens that the Phantoms have a ton of injuries they're going through right now, and they've had to take some players out of their farm system. So that's how my league, the CBA, has evolved. But everybody else kind of differs. Sometimes they have a reserve pool of just 10 players. Mine has, a 25-man roster for the farm team. So it just kind of depends on how you want the league to evolve. It's completely up to you.
Marco, when you hear that, Marco, what goes through your mind is
I thought you couldn't put porn on YouTube. What are you doing?
Oh, cool. I'm using that, buddy.
No, I mean, that's Ian. That is exactly what I'm looking for. I mean, that's the kind of stuff. When I got into this hobby, and the reason why I gravitated to out of the park baseball is I remember it clearly. It was the 2017 off season, and the Cubs were at a crossroads of, do we keep trying to reload, or do we maybe trade some of these assets and whatever. And yeah. I'm like, I want to be in those shoes. What would it be like if I have this roster and I know this is what my roster looks like, what kind of trades should I be thinking about? Who should I be calling up? Things like that. And I shouldn't say there's no, but the tabletop universe, I think, is very closed and it's opening a lot more now. But certainly when I first got into the hobby 10 or so years ago, it was very closed universe. You had a season you wanted to replay, and you played it because you wanted that quick hit of nostalgia, because you wanted to remember your favorite team, your favorite player, whatever. And I think, again, not in any way being negative towards Keith and Play Games. Everybody knows how I feel about them. But what I dislike about XHL, or he did a soccer version of this, which I did purchase and I love playing it, is I cannot shake the feeling that whenever those seasons end on my tabletop, where do we go? Where do we go? What do I do? Do I just move players to another team and then I'm just playing the same team again with one player, but they didn't progress, or I don't know if they got better or worse. It's the same card, so they're gonna be roughly the same.
Yeah.
So while you were talking through all that, Marco, I was thinking, when you replay a season, like I'm replaying 1981 baseball, right? And I want to do every game through the strike season, but motivational wise, outside of trying to get through it all, right, and maybe replaying in nostalgia and everything else that comes through it, at the end of it, what do I do with it? It's always been my kind of moment of like in life, is there an afterlife? What do we do after all this is done, right? For my tabletop, it's the same thing. I get to like maybe 60 games in and I go, what am I going to do with all this? All this work that I just put in, what am I doing with all this? Because I already know what the 1982 set looks like, right? I already know what's going to happen in 1982, right? But is that something from a fictional perspective when you play that you say, look, the team isn't doing great, but I don't know what next year is going to look like. So I'm going to keep playing this out, and it keeps you motivated and going through. Is that, I see you shaking your head, so I think I'm in the spot here.
I'll tell you what. So I shouted out Al Wilson earlier. So about 6-7 months or so ago, he released the commissioner's expansion for football, and he had one that came out like May or June for baseball. And so I flew, it tells you how to create teams and all that. So I created a league, and I got through my first season. It was a little bit of a surprising season. At Dallas, again, it's all fictional, but Dallas won the championship because of course they did. But they were a middling team for most of the year and just got hot at the end and won. All right, that's a fun storyline. I like that.
Right.
But then we get to the off season, and this is where like this is scratching the exact itch that I'm talking about, because how Al sets his off season up is it's all dice rolls. You don't have too many decisions. I mean, I guess you could make decisions about which players get traded or this or that. But what he does is he gives you general manager behavior types. So like this team is going to want to be defensive focused. This team's going to have really good special teams, but maybe their offense isn't as good. So what you're going to do then is you're going to roll on certain charts, and that'll give you modifiers. So maybe their defense gets a lot better, but the offense comes down, or vice versa. And what you end up seeing is you're like, okay, this is kind of what I'm looking for, because now I have a natural story that I could start telling for next season. Like, all right, Dallas just won the championship. They probably shouldn't have. They won it because of their offense. They're going to need defense in the offseason. So I focused their offseason on defense. And now here we are. I flew through that first season. I think I got it done in 2 months. So now I'm in the middle of my second season, and teams that were like sort of good, but not really, are now really good this year because they had a good offseason. And teams that were bad stayed bad, but you can tell they're getting better. And it's like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want. This is what I wanted. I want to see the natural progression, because another criticism of some games is it's too quick. It's this team won 5. They went 5-11 last year, and now they're, I guess I'm describing my own Chicago Bears, but now they're 11-5. Like, how did that doesn't happen, right? That it's not, it doesn't feel right. You need to see that progression. You need to see that, that team that's been really good for a long time, and they're grasping, like the Chiefs, they're grasping, but now, like, when's the bottom going to fall out? Is it next season when this guy retires, or this contract comes up, and vice versa? This team was really bad, but they drafted this player, okay, and then they got a little bit better. Then they got this guy, they got a little bit better, and now I'm in year 5, and they're the best team in the league. That to me, like, really captures the essence of team building, and which is what I'm looking for.
Well, let me ask. Hang on just a second, Ian, if you don't mind. Yeah. Let me ask you this, both of you, and I think Ian, as a developer, you've already I've already accomplished this. But Marco, is the next logical step for the C&D world, the cards and dice world that we all live in, back in our strat days, back in our APA days, status pro, all that, we replayed the seasons, right? We didn't have these fictional sets up. Is that next big movement going to be the off season, and these developers having to find a way, like Ian has, to come out with something to make your off season interesting, so your replay means something as it gets near the end, and so that there is something to look forward to? Is that a natural possible progression of C&D?
I mean, I think any developer should be thinking about that, but you also have to be thinking, I suppose, about the business aspect of it, which is, I don't know how many people in this hobby are like you and I in that sense. I think, and I could be wrong about this, but I think a vast majority of people that are in this hobby are just your replayers. They just want their favorite team, their favorite season, and that's just what they want to do. Yeah. And that's great. And I'm not knocking those people. I mean, they're one of us,
Yeah, absolutely.
But what I would say is, if you're going to dip your toe into the fictional world, you have to give more control to the gamer, I think.
Yeah.
You have to allow the gamer to decide fate maybe not decide fate because the dice will do that, but decide, okay,
the story,
right?
Yeah.
Like, if I want to really be the general manager, well, then I need to know that the decisions I made in the offseason had real consequences. That I decided to point this team's trajectory in this particular direction. You know what? We're going pitching here, not hitting. So I spent all our budget on this pitcher, and maybe that pitcher's got a 1.5 ERA and he's 10-1, but the offense can't hit a broadside of the barn. I want to be able to feel that on the tabletop. Like, oh man, did I really mess up here? Like, I want to feel that as a gamer, because in the real world, those are what GMs deal with every day. And I guess that's the fun part for us. It's just our fun time on the line. For them, that's their livelihood. They lose jobs over stuff like that.
Right.
So
I think what I was saying that, there's always going to be, all these companies are always going to kick out, this year's baseball cards, right? Or this year's game. And that's just going to be part of their process. I'm just wondering if that GM mode is going to start to become a little more popular. It's never really been a part of C&D. It's been a part of video games, right? You play college football, you play Madden. There's always been the GM mode to take you to the next season. I have never, until Ian and until we saw it here with Keith, started to see somebody take a look at that off season.
So I think it has its place to where, I did provide the ability for somebody to kind of just download a file and be able to do it on themselves, do it themselves. But I really think most gamers want to be able to come up with their own methods. Like, I don't think it should be dictated to where, like, if you have a team and you hire, a card that's a GM and they're going to tell you which way you should take the team. I feel like, especially for baseball.
Mode. At that point, At that point, you're playing owner mode. You're the owner.
Exactly. But I feel like if you're playing out a game, especially when it comes to baseball, and you're playing over a long season, and my game only comes with a 72 game schedule, and I think that's part of the nice thing about fictional. You could, have your season rules the way you want to make it. But I feel like if you're playing over a long season, you're going to know the strengths and weaknesses of the team, and you shouldn't have it dictated to you that, like, oh, they're going all in on just pitchers. Like, the strengths, go after the players that you feel are going to complement the rest of the players on the team that are still there. Like, it shouldn't be dictated to how you do that. And when it comes to, like, the off season for On Deck Baseball, like, if you want a little help with it, I have the helper, but a lot of people honestly kind of figure out their own methods of doing it. They come up with their own mechanics, and I'm all for that. Like, I tell everybody that I put out a game to where, like, there's no black and white. There's a lot of gray area. All right. And even when you're playing the game, and my rules come kind of like an a la carte system. So you can kind of like play some, your offense at a lower level and your defense and, at an all-star level or whatever. You can mix and match the rules to make a game that you're comfortable with. And it all comes down to that for your off season and how your team evolves too. Like, you make it as difficult as you want it to be, and you go in as deep as you want to. Yeah, right. I mean, some people fall in. Like, I've been playing my own game for, God, I don't know, 15 years now. And it's only been on the market for like 5. So, like, I kind of know where I want to go. But even then, like, the set that I put now is different than what I was playing early on. And I feel like as a gamer, where you want to be, and you just create those own rules for yourself.
That's why I said the sandbox, right? I think, give the gamer the tools and then let their imagination run free. Yeah. You're going to have those folks that you need to tell me what to do here, and that's fine. But because I'm the same way. When I started, I took Keith's Football America set and I basically fictionalized it even further. And when I first did it, I'm like, okay, I want to give these guys contracts. And then, if they have injuries, they have this, they have that, blah, blah, blah. And I got maybe a full season done. And all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I think I kind of bastardized this a little bit. Like I like went a little too overboard. So if the point of me saying that is, like, sometimes it could be too much. Sometimes it could be too little. The point is, if you give, if you build it, they will come. If you give them the tool, you're going to figure out, because all of us are different. You're going to figure out how to make it work. Getting back to that XHL set. I think it was FLOTA, FLOTA, the soccer version of that Play put out a couple years ago. Same exact thing. You had the 20 fictional teams and then like 30 real life players that you can plug in. So I'm like, all right, how do I make this the Marco way? And so I basically made a free agent market, and it worked out, and I make it work, and it's fun, and I like playing it. But again, like what I said before, okay, when that first season is inevitably finished, I don't know where to go. And that's the thing. Like, I guess we could do the free agent market all over again, but eventually you will get to a point where you're going to completely exhaust that set. And frankly, there are too many good games by too many good developers where I fear, and maybe it's not a legitimate fear, but like, all right, if I can't figure out what to do with that, I'm going to move on to another game and I'll never think about it ever again.
Absolutely. It becomes shelf, I talk about this in my own business, that the business that I do is, I work on software, and if you don't find a way to make that software meaningful to the client, it's going to become shelfware. And that's the same thing with our game, our hobby here. If you can't find meaning in that set, or you feel like you've exhausted it, Marco, it's shelfware.
Yeah.
And that's why I was saying, do you think that, these designers are going to have to figure out a way to make it not be shelfware by providing an off season or some attachment to it, or continue to kick out second sets of, the way Keith does is upgrading those Baseball America and hockey and everything else. They're going to have to do something. You can't just throw out a set and leave it.
Well, I think about the Scram set, which they're amazing. Okay. I'm genuinely, I would love to know how many people play that game and play the Scram set that know nothing about NASCAR. Right? Like, think about it, because you know how many people I've met over the years of doing this that they play red, white, and blue racing, they play the Scram set, but they A, never watched NASCAR before, B, haven't watched NASCAR since, and C, if I name them 4 NASCAR drivers, they probably don't know. There you go. So
you could be pointing to me too.
But my point is, like, okay, so you keep pumping out the Scram set, and that's great, but what if that stops? What if that stops?
Something interesting that I think people in my community do also is that I have 3 different sets of just rookies, and each set has 75 different players. So what they've started doing is they'll take each set and then they'll divide it between, you weren't here, Marco, when I was talking about this, but the cards have serial numbers on them. Mm-hmm. So like you could see each player and where they are in the line. So they'll take those serial numbers, and each one is unique to that player, and they'll divide the rookie set by odds and evens, and they'll do a draft like a quarter of the way into their season. So they keep bringing in new players and new blood into their farm system or their league. So you'll get, like, if there's 75, obviously split that in half, 37 players in the first draft, 38. And then with the 3 different sets, you could do that for, 6 seasons. Another thing I think that you touched on earlier was also, like, whether or not you want your league to evolve quickly or slowly. Yeah. I think something that is kind of cool is that I've seen, and I didn't even intend for this, but some people actually just started doing it. I have a couple of players out there that, even though I have seasons 1 through 4 available, there's nothing saying that you kind of do need to start with season 1. There's nothing saying that you can't skip season 2 and go to season 3 to see the players evolve a little bit faster, and then go to season 5 when I have it available. So, all those options are there. And because it's your universe, and there's, like we talked about, expectations, there's no expectations for any of these players. You can do that, and I think that weighs in, and that's a big part of it also. So that kind of keeps it fresh for people as they're moving forward. And as far as like the off-season piece goes, I think it's important to have the tools there. And I think developers probably owe it to the people purchasing the product to have an option for that. But I think it's most important up to the person to come up with their own way that makes it comfortable for them to do it.
For sure.
So that's just my opinion on it.
No, and I think you're right about that. I do. I think, as I said, I think everybody is different. Everybody's going to approach it differently. And I think there's a lot of trial and error. Like when going way back to when I first started in Stratomatic, my whole plan was semi-fictional. I bought the 2016 season. I played the games I wanted to play with that Cubs team. And then I blew up the entire set. I created 10 fictional teams and drafted players. And I did 4. That was the only tabletop game that I played for years because I didn't know any of this existed. And it was great. And it was really cool to see, because every year I would just buy the new set and then just put those players on their fictional teams. So I sort of knew how the players were going to be. I just didn't know how their fictional teams were going to be. Yeah. And to wrap this up, I think, and maybe we'll all take a seat on the therapist couch here for a second, but I think
hold my chair.
I think the reason, I know at least for me, the reason why it's so important to see the evolution that you're talking about, or why I loved that original Strat League that I did so much, is at the end of the day, when we sit down, I think we are all storytellers and we just want to be able to develop these stories and watch them play out on our tabletop. So if I get into year 3 of my fictional league and I know that this team has lost to this team 3 of the last 4 years in this series, and I could start seeing, oh, he struck him out the last time he faced him. And now I'm thinking to myself, this guy must hate him, And
I know exactly what you're talking about, man. Like, exactly.
Yes, and that's the thing. It's like, I feel that one-off sets and one-off seasons don't give that enough for you in the fictional world. And the reason why they do in replay world is you already know all of that. You already know the Bears hate the Packers and vice versa. You already know the Yankees and the Red Sox don't like each other. But I don't know that the New York Phantoms don't like the Boston Patriots. I mean, you think they do because they're regional, but there's no history there.
Yeah.
But if we get 3 years down the line, now there's history. And they won the division last year, but we're going to win it this year. And now this series is for the title. It's like, I can't tell you when those games, and they're rare, but they do happen, when I can literally count down the minutes until I'm done with work. I'm like, I need to play that series. I know I can't. I built this up all day. I can't wait. Sometimes I look more forward to those tabletop games that is the culmination of something than the real games being played.
Well, it's because you created it, Marco. You created that universe. And you know what? Nobody has that. Nobody has that story, that experience with that team. And I'm sitting here with the cards for one of my teams. What sets the experience in that team is all mine. You don't have it. Ian doesn't have it. I have it. And I played that basketball game this morning. I have that experience with that game. And and I think Ron Juckett says it the best. The second the dice hit the mat, your story is now completely different than anybody else's. But the most important thing that this community needs is for you to tell it. And that's what I created this pull up a chair for, was to get people to talk about what they're doing. I don't see enough posts about, I see a box score, I see this, but I don't really see the story as much as I'd like to see, because I don't know what happened in Marco's league yesterday. I don't know what happened, unless you are posting that kind of stuff. So I really think it's so important for everybody to get their stories out there and what's going on, because it's so unique and there's so many good ones. And I just hope that we all can start sharing more, because I heard so many good things at play when I went to the conference there. And I was like, where's all this? How come none of this is online? And these people that, I'm just not a big poster. Yeah, but we're all missing out because you're not sharing your story. Yeah. And that's some incredible stuff that you experience. And yeah, I get it. We all don't have all the time to go through everybody's long. I think Dave Gardner talks about it. He doesn't read long posts. I do, because I generally think somebody who put a long post in has really put some time into this. There must be something really cool here. And not to mention, I just want to respect the person who's put that kind of time into a post. I want to be able to read what they did. I think we lost Marco here for a second. But I also get that, not everybody has time to flow through a million posts on Facebook. But one of the other things I did want to get to, Ian, was co-op leagues, and hopefully Marco comes back here and we get him back. Looks like he's trying to connect again. Hang on here a second. Let's see what's going on here. We lost him here. Let's remove him. Looks like he's trying to connect again, but it's not working. So anyway, we'll see if we can get him back to connect in here in a second. But co-op leagues, where do you see the advantage of doing co-op leagues over other leagues? Over we're just doing them by yourself.
Now, do you mean co-op as in like over like the internet, or co-op face to face? Like, because I do both. I've done both.
I'm gonna get into the split there because I think there's a 1A and a 1B there. But let's start with a co-op on the internet.
All right, so I've only done the one. I've done the one, which was the 1961 replay, and something. It was a lot of fun. And I think each has its own value because, when you're playing a game on your own table, you kind of, you're kind of breaking away from life and you're kind of just doing your own thing. And it's definitely a mental health type of thing. And when you're doing it online, it just gets you to interact with people that are playing the same game as you, have the same interests as you. So it has that social aspect of it. You're building your replay together. And for me, it was the 1961 season. So together, you're experiencing the fact as to whether or not, Maris is going to hit those 61 home runs or Mantle is going to hit 54 or come closer to 61. So it was really fun to watch those people interact and do their own recaps. And everybody put recaps into the Facebook group. You were one of them. Always look forward to your recaps and everybody else's. And it's fun to see the different styles that everybody did in their own recaps. And it was also fun to see the different styles of people's play because, like I mentioned, on deck baseball, you could play at different levels. Well, everybody in our particular replay, they had different styles of play as well. And I think it was really, for me as a designer, it was fun to see who's playing how and how those stats are going to correlate, if it's going to affect the stats as it's coming out, because this was a giant testing ground for me for a 1961 full season set to see if the stats would come in line. And amazingly, towards the end, they were very, very close, especially Elston Howard, Johnny Blanchard, and these guys. Maris ended up with 58 home runs, very close to the 61. So it was really fun to see those interactions with the other people in the co-op, to kind of go back and forth with, whether or not they think their stats are lining up, how much fun they're having with it, waiting and anticipating their next, recap to be posted. So it was a lot of fun in that aspect. So I think the co-op, each one has its own value. I would definitely do another one. I hope to do another one. But they're both as fun. Some people think it's more fun one particular way or the other, and that's really, up to that particular person.
Do you think that there's in a co-op league, and understanding that you've only done the one, and I've only done one, I'm in like 4 now, but I did, only completed one, which is yours. Do you think that it holds like yourself, or do you feel like you're holding yourself to a standard of completion of getting done through the season because there's other people kind of counting on you to be a part of this?
From my aspect, because I was the designer of the game, I definitely felt like there was more responsibility that landed on me just to make sure everything was carried out. But I think in the general aspect, I think it's not just like, holding you accountable for your games, but I think it's you're having more fun with it, so you're more likely to complete it. Does that make sense? Like if you're setting out to do like you're doing a 1981 replay for baseball, right? I know you're having fun with it. You talk about it a lot. You post about it a lot. But would it be more fun to have other people helping you along with it, and you're talking and discussing what happened in today's games, and maybe one guy's playing the American League, one guy's playing the National League, and you're talking about it because there's no interleague play yet? Like that almost kind of makes it a little bit more fun, which would kind of make it a little bit easier to complete. Yeah. So I can kind of see that angle also. The other thing too, which is something that I'd really love to be able to do in the future, is to do a co-op with a fictional version of the game, because then there's more interactions. You could do trades between teams. You could, sign somebody else's guy who went into the free agent market in the off season, like that kind of co-op. And we actually, a couple of years ago, we almost kicked one off, and then a lot of people had a lot of private family issues come up, and it kind of like, ended before it got out of the starting gate. But I think a co-op like that would be, phenomenal. I think that would be really fun to be able to do something like that. Not sure I have the time with it, with everything else, but
You know what's interesting is something you had said there really connected with me, which was when I was a kid, and we're all going back to our strat days, right? I was in a basement playing with my buddy, and it looks like Marco's back again. He's been having some problems. Marco, we're kind of getting into the co-op ideas, and I don't know if you're a part of any, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it. But something Ian just talked about on my American or on my 1981 replay, I'm doing it by myself, and it's my stories and it's what I got going on. And he asked me whether or not I would maybe enjoy it more if maybe somebody else was playing the American League and I was playing the National League. And what really hit with me right then and there, Ian, when you said that, took me back to when I was like 10 years old. Man, I was in a basement with my buddy. He had the American League, I had the National League, or the other way, I don't even remember. We're playing strat, and we are constantly talking to each other till 5 a.m. about what's going on between our games, and I don't think there was anything more fun than that back when I was a kid. So would I enjoy that as an adult? Hell yeah. I don't. I'm in like 4 different co-op leagues already. I would definitely say, and I'm definitely no expert on this, but I would say that each one of those co-op leagues has their energy levels are different within those co-op leagues. And I think so I think if you get into a co-op league, it's really going to be about the energy. And what everyone else, not just you brings, but everyone else brings, makes a difference in those games, or in that league, and your excitement level in that league. And I'm just gonna, because the Blam League is on my table right now, the energy level already, and we haven't even played a game yet. I've only just done a preseason game. Their energy level and their amount of posting and the things that they do make me want to play, even though it's a 3.5 hour game.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it.
Like wanting to play.
Yeah, you feed off of the energy of everybody that's in the co-op, and like the more they're excited, the more you get excited about it, and that excitement allows you to finish these projects when otherwise, it kind of might be a long draw along a long season trying to finish it out. So I think a co-op makes things a little bit more exciting, and the interactions with the other people, the social aspect of it definitely, drives you a little bit easier to finish these projects.
And I'm going to tie it into something I had said on previous shows, which is if you're looking for social media to validate your replay, you're not going to get it. I've always said like you put out. I always say put out a no hitter. I had one a couple weeks ago. I had a no hitter. Put it out there, and I got like a couple of people saying, "Oh, that's interesting," whatever. And you get like 5-6 likes, and that's it. So if I like was like expecting a gigantic response to that and was going to be disappointed, quit my replay, I would never make it past anything. Yeah, and I'm going to tie this together, but because people are not as interested in everybody else's stories as I would hope people would be, but they do when you're sharing in a co-op. If I had happened to have a no-hitter within that co-op of 12 other owners,
about it,
you're going to get a gigantic response. I would hope. And if you don't, you're probably in the wrong co-op. At least it would be for me. I would expect a huge thing. I mean, I'm talking about a preseason game where a guy scored 30 points in the first half of a game, and I think every single owner responded within an hour of me putting it in the chat. That to me, if you are that type of person who's looking for the social piece of the gaming to validate what you're doing or to be a part of what you're doing, I almost think a co-op is a must-have to your replay. And I think that the reason people don't jump into them is because, and I guess I'm talking for other people, but got Marco back on. Much better picture, Marco. Whatever you're doing,
oh my God.
better.
I'm on my phone now. The laptop of all things decided. You know what? And this, it's all I've been thinking about the last 6 days is the LA Rams having to come out to Chicago tomorrow. It is 12 degrees outside. I honestly wonder if my wires got fried or something or frozen.
Oh wow!
It is
crazy.
Could be.
You got the temperature. It's even a clearer picture on your phone. It's amazing. But it's what we were kind of going through was I was kind of tying back to. I had said before, Marco, that if you're looking for social media to justify your replay or what you're doing, you're going to be disappointed. you're going to be disappointed. Now I talk to a lot of people and they're like, how come I don't get any responses? And I'm like, well, it's your story. And as much as I would like people to get into everybody's story a little more, they just don't. They're kind of A, probably busy with their own story, and B, they kind of just give you the, hey, that's cool. I go back to that no hitter I posted a couple of weeks ago. I got like 7 likes and 3 people commented. But had I been in a co-op league for that no hitter, I would have had a ton of people talking back to me about it. It would have been a big deal within our league, I'm sure. And I said, if it isn't, you're in the wrong co-op league. But the energy level comes from that. So if you're looking for that social reaction or that social engagement within your replay, co-op is for you. But if you like the statistics and you're the guy who just wants to put his head down and create his own thing and have his own goal and have his own product that is all yours and all your story, then the co-op probably isn't for you. So I don't know, Marco, do you do co-ops or are you by yourself?
I'm by myself. I tried last year a co-op league, and I feel really bad about this, but I basically did not get to finish even halfway through. So I'm that guy in the co-op group. So hand up, that's me. I'm sorry. It was for a lacrosse blast league, which I feel bad about because it was a really fun league. But I learned that it's not my thing. But I could definitely see where you're coming from, where if you post some cool results, you're going to get a reaction. And what I would say to that, John, and I don't know, again, I've been trying to deal with my technical issues for the last 10 minutes. So I don't know if you've touched on this or not, but, and I don't mean this to come off as harsh as it might come off, but I feel that, and you kind of already said it, if you're looking for Facebook or social media to validate your story, if you will, good luck, because what you're looking for out of your game, the odds of you finding someone with the exact same expectations is almost zero. And I learned that pretty early on, and I give the Strat crowd and the Apple crowd a lot of flack. I love you guys very, very much. We're all part of the same community, but I give you guys a lot of flack because it has been an ongoing battle where it drives me crazy when you see people who criticize other people's results and then they question, well, did you play it correctly? Pardon my French. Who gives a shit? Who cares? Like, oh, Marcus Allen rushed for 1,471 yards, and in your replay, he rushed for 1,397 yards. Did you do something wrong? And it's like, have you ever watched a football game? Do you know how random it is to be able to get results that close to real life in any sport, not just football, any sport?
And as a developer from my end, like putting out this replay that we're going through, like you're thinking about that as like an individual standpoint, but I'm thinking like, oh, I got 10 guys playing this replay, and how are these stats going to hand out, and who's going to leave comments like, oh, Maris only had 39 home runs when he should have hit 61. Like, yeah, something, sometimes dice have lives of their own. Like, I can't control the dice. But yeah, that was in the back of my head the entire time, 162 games. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I had this, I remember the exact discussion. One of the first times I went on Dave's show, and I think Ron was still there too at the time. And he was talking about how they had this, I can't remember exactly how it went, but it was somebody was upset at their results from a football season. And what they were upset about is the defense didn't get enough turnovers compared to the regular season or the real season. And I use this as an example. The 2002 Tampa Bay, and you can find a million examples of this across any sport, but the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers returned 7 fumbles or touchdown or interceptions for a touchdown the year they won the Super Bowl. Actually, might have been more. I think it was 9. Good luck replicating that on the tabletop. You have to get the interception and or fumble. Yeah. You have to roll the right return, and they have to be in the right field position for you to get those results. And you need to do that 7 to 9 times throughout the year. Not happening.
Yeah.
If that's what if those are your expectations, I said it at the top of when I joined the show. If I'm going to replay the 2025 Bears season and expect them to come from behind by 6 points or more in the fourth quarter 7 times, it's not happening.
Yeah.
They might do it twice. They might do it once. They might do it none,
Yeah,
zero.
exactly. You know, I was on Dave's show too, with Ron, and they loved my kind of my own theme, which is replays, not replicas.
Yep.
Because if you're looking to replica, then just go watch the box scores out of baseballreference.com
Yep.
and just walk through them all.
Or by the way, or YouTube. It is the greatest.
Yeah. Just watch the games on YouTube.
The closest thing we as human beings have ever been able to accomplish that is close to a time machine. We have it. It's called YouTube.
Yep. You could go just watch the games. But yeah, we're supposed to be here to replay. You know, and I am going to go off on a little tangent of what you talked about there, Marco, which is, and actually I'm going to give Dave and Ron again credit here. One of the things that they talked about in one of their shows was one of the most exciting seasons, because I think it was all about what do I replay next? What do I do next? Do you need an idea for your next one? And I believe it was Ron. I'm almost positive it was Ron, and had that brilliant brain of his. Ron said, find a season in which one of your favorite teams lost a bunch of games that were within one possession. He's talking about football. And don't do the ones where they won, like you're talking about, Marco. This year just having to work for the Bears. Don't do that, because the chances are out of those 6, you might get 2 or 3 of those, and you're going to end up with an 8-8, an upset season. Find where they lost 6. Like that, and one possession games, you have a better chance of taking that team from 6-10 to 10-6, because that margin of error for them was extremely small. But that 10-6 team is also a margin of error to go to 6-10 is also very small. So if you want to have a fun time, you want to take a team out, and there's nothing that we all love more than taking our favorite team and showing everybody that we can manage them better. That's the ones you want to take. And so those one possession, you can't really do this with baseball as much. Sure, you can look at 1-run losses. You could, and see if you could get that better. But in soccer, you got the, maybe losing by 1 goal. Hockey, same thing. I guess you can really do it with every sport. Okay? But the football really stands out with the one possession games. They really do. And so that's a great way, if you are looking for your next project, is turning a team around that way. And all you got to do, Marco, you talked about it, grab ChatGPT, ask them, for one possession games, your favorite team, and you're going to be surprised how many, the data you're going to get back on that to replace.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. I mean, I think I've wanted to redo, and I talked about it a little bit earlier. I wanted to replay the 06 Bears, because up until this season, well, maybe 2010, but up until this season, that was the best Bears year of my life. And I even think back to that season, you had the Arizona game, the Giants game, all one possession games, the Rams game that went our way that on the tabletop probably don't go our way. And next thing you know, I think they went 12-4 that year. You're not 12-4, you're 10-6, and maybe you're a 6 seed instead of hosting a playoff game. Yeah. You're on the road to Seattle or wherever, and it's a different season. And am I going to enjoy playing that on the tabletop? I'll tell you what, not as much as I enjoyed watching the real thing. So,
yeah, and I don't know who I was talking to, Tom Abbott, or somebody I was talking to is. I always famously talk about Tom, who's on the show last week, not having time, but he represents a big chunk of people who love playing, tabletop games, but doesn't have the time to go through and do a huge replay. And I was telling him, I think it was him again, it was him or somebody, that, well, don't replay the whole, let's just do football. Don't replay the whole 16-game season of football. Yeah. Replay the 6 games that there was a one possession game. Only those 6 games. Take the record from the other ones and see if you can change the output of what happened with your team. You don't have to replay the other 10 games. And so now you're replaying a season, just the 6 games that kind of were one possession games, and see what happens. And that person did go up and take off and say, hey, yeah, I'm actually getting a lot out of doing a replay season. I'm doing a little different than some other people do, but they're getting something out of it.
That's cool. I haven't thought about that. That seems like it would be much more up my alley personally. That sounds fun. No, because I always say that my dream would be to do the 2016 Cubs full season. But then you think about it and you're like, okay, first of all, I wouldn't be satisfied just doing the Cubs schedule because I would have
Yeah.
to know if the Indians get back. I would have to know if the Dodgers were that good. They probably would be, but who knows? There were a few formidable teams that year that people that are now lost to history because of what ended up happening. But the Giants could have won the World Series. The Nationals could have won the World Series. The Blue Jays were right on the doorstep, could have won. The Yankees could have won it that year. It just so happened that the Cubs finally did it. But then the flip side of that coin is, okay, what happens now if I get how long is a baseball season? Like 1,600 games or something if you were to play the whole thing. What if I get
2,632.
there you go. What if I get
I've done it.
a thousand games into this and the Cubs are 80 and 80 and they've lost all these crazy one-run games or blown these saves or whatever. Now I'm upset because I'm 2/3 of the way through. I don't want to finish because I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. And now I'm going to be like, well, screw this. Like, this thing's cursed. The team won 108 games that year. They're not 80 and 80. I mean, yeah, the variance is probably not that wide, but you never know what, as Uncle Ron Juckett says, as soon as you throw the dice, it's all fictional. What happens if Jake Arrieta roll? Now, I don't usually play with injuries, but what if he has a season-ending injury 3 games in, and now all of a sudden we don't have our ace, and then Anthony Rizzo's in a slump, and it's like, with fictional, okay, great, that'll be the story for this season. That's fun. That's something to bring into next season. But for this season, I'm going to be upset if that's not the result, right? I'm actually going to take a quick time out. You guys keep talking. I will come right back.
Sure, no problem. I think just to add to what Marco was saying there, that's like once again bumping up against history, right? So he's bumping those Cubs up against history, and we all know, like Ian, you've played out some seasons now, and I think you said one, but you also played out these fictionals. The amount of time on your desktop, that's an investment, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is get 80 games, as he's talking about. Actually, he's talking about 160 games into his Cubs replay, and find out you just wasted a year on your tabletop. And so, I think that's yet another a building block on why people are moving. I really feel this way, and I could be wrong, but I feel like people are moving away from the replay and trying to chase history, when, as Marco said, there's such a small window there of something that could take your 100-win team to 80 in baseball, and playing fictional. And he was so matter of the fact, like, that's okay, that's the story for this season. He was not okay with that being the story of the season for the Cubs. Because
that's the value. Yeah, that's the value in fictional, because you're not comparing it to something that already happened. So whatever happens on your tabletop, that's what happens. And it is. I mean, it's a long season to have to build upon expectations that are already existing. And if you have the fictional game on your tabletop, you don't have to worry about that. And like, it is an investment. Like, this is here. I'm going to show you something. This is a book from 10 years ago. This is actually my buddy's book. To be clear, I have never won a league in my own game, which this is his book that he actually beat me twice. But I mean, you're talking investment. This is score sheets. Mm-hmm. This is all score sheets that are filled out. Like, that's an investment in it. And if you're going to play it to the point where, like, you're going to be disappointed because you're not hitting the expectation for a historical replay, what's the value in that? Like, if you're playing fictional, you know, and I understand the value in historical. Believe me, I do, because I enjoyed it immensely. So I'm not trying to downgrade that at all. But when you're playing fictional, you don't have that expectation, and you build in on your own experience with every single season that you play. So I mean, that's the value there.
I think it goes back to, I just want to mention here, I'm not sure if you can see the screen or not, Ian, but Mike's talking about in the chat that the co-op league that he is in, and Mike is a big co-op guy, uses that leap. That is like the completely different set that Play came out with that I have setting right here. And I'm sorry, Mike. It's still in its. It's still in its. I looked at it like 3 times this week, and I was going to pop it open. But Play came out with a 2040 set. What would baseball look like in 2040?
Yeah, I think I've heard about it. Yeah.
Paul Skeens is on Arizona.
Yeah.
And he's 40 years old. He's got a 2-point-something ERA in Mike's league. And I was like, oh my God, I got to jump into that and look at that. Because that's yet another hybrid thought process into the tabletop. Here's some fictional players, but here's some of the older players as well, or some of the younger players. They're older now. And in Keith's mind, this goes back to something that Marco was talking about. You got to rely on Keith's mind and Keith's ratings on the cards, but you're out in the stadium, so you're not in control of it. These games you're more out there playing and watching from the stadium look than you are from a manager's seat or even a GM seat. So I think you just have to take in the game. But to go back to the co-op league, you don't have that. A co-op fictional, it's like a double downing on having people keeping you motivated toward an end goal, and not having to worry about the historical season and the replay. And I know where I wanted to go with that. I think the one thing that kept me going on my 1986 replay that I did, where I finished it all, was that, and maybe this is, I'm going to get my positive for being a Cleveland fan here. My expectations were nothing for the Indians. I didn't replay 1985, 86 because I was because I want to see how the Indians would do. Or what am I just going to hit myself over the head the whole entire day? That wasn't why I played that. I played that because that was my senior year of high school, and I was really into baseball at that time, and I really followed it all. And I became a Met fan throughout that whole thing because I really just loved watching Gary Carter play. I was a catcher in high school, so was Gary Carter was like Johnny Bench, and then Gary Carter for me. That was kind of my movement in baseball, and Carter was more because more toward the Expos. It was when I picked him up, and then he moved to the Mets. And again, if you are a Cleveland fan, you have to pick a kind of surrogate second team, because if you want to enjoy October baseball, because we're not going to be there. So for me, it was the Mets, and then I really got into Gooden, and I got into Ron Darling and all that. So I wanted to replay for the Mets. Now, I guess looking at that now as I talk about that out loud, had the Mets stunk the joint up, I might not have. Who knows if I would have finished that replay, because I was into them. But they were 25 games up in August. So it was going great. The Astros won, and with Mike Scott, won the West, just like they did. The Angels won the West, just like they did. My fun was watching the East. And I know I'm going to lose all my Boston friends, but I'm not a huge Boston fan. And I was loving watching them set in the basement of my replay. And it was because their bullpen, and I've talked about this on a previous show, their bullpen was absolutely horrible. And Detroit and Cleveland, of all teams, which have probably also kept me going in this, Cleveland hung out all the way to the last day in Detroit. They tied for the division title. Detroit beat them in a 1-game series. Detroit went on to play California. California beat them. And then it was great because the Mets took the first 3 games of the series. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be the Mets in California. And then Mike Scott decided, and a couple other pitchers on Houston decided to win 4 straight and knock the Mets out, went to the World Series. And then Houston had no answer for Doug DeCenze, and the Angels won my World Series. The whole point to all that was that I didn't have expectations of who should win. I had expectations that I was hoping the Mets would win it all, but it wasn't it wasn't my goal for the replay was to watch them win it all again. I just loved that year, and I had a different story for every team.
Yeah, no, that 1986 is a popular year. I wish I could redo that or put a full season set together. That would be a lot of players, a lot of teams to card.
Oh, it would be. It would be.
Yeah,
But
even being a Yankee
was
fan,
fun.
like I understand the historical value in 1986. I was in New York when the Mets won the World Series in my parents' bedroom, jumping up and down when that ball went through between his legs. Like, yeah. I mean, I get it. Believe me, that's a huge year for baseball.
It really was, and again, I just really enjoyed it, and Gary Carter and all that. But yeah, so so for me, my replay on a historical season, I had tons of fun. I also have to throw in that I talked about this before, that I had just before that started bought Payoff Pitch. That game really kept me in it. I was like, this is the first game. I'm pretty sure it was the first game I had bought outside of Aqua Strat or Status Pro. You know, the original 3 from back when I was a kid. And I saw this new game and the interaction, cards and all that. That also helped get me through to the end because I was loving that set. I was loving the playing that game was just so much. So exciting for me. So, but that throwing all that I'm talking about together, that's a lot of intangibles that have to happen to get me through a replay.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering out loud, because the Angels, because the Mets, because the Astros were all in it, did I stick with it because of that? I wonder. I don't even know. I'm just looking back on it now, wondering, hey, if that would have been 3 other teams and the Mets would have been horrible, but I have stuck with that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know. And I just wonder, but turning that thing back to the fictional side, you don't have that expectation of what 3 teams are supposed to be there, what teams are supposed to be there in the postseason. And I just think that is what is starting to pull people, because I want to tie the whole show back together here. I think it's pulling people to function. I'm doing my regular job now. I use this product called Functional. It's pulling people over to the fictional side of the house. And so if we are pulling people to the fictional side of the house, how do we keep them there? And that's where I was going with the whole GM model, and your model of On Deck is unique to the system out there. And I'm wondering to keep them there and not have them go back to the other side, the dark side, right? Of just doing replays. And there will be people out there like me who are going to hybrid this to death.
Sure.
But I think that the developers will lose out if they don't find a way to get that off season in, because we touched on this, if I'm 30 games into a season and my team, my or whatever, if it's my team, even in a co-op, and my team is not competitive, what is making me want to continue? And so if you don't have that off season part of it attached to the fictional, I'm thinking, this is just me, I'm thinking that's where you're going to lose people. And it looks like Marco's back.
No, I definitely think it's a big piece because a lot of people look forward to the off season when they're playing on deck baseball. And I am definitely one of those people because I like to see the player movement. I like being able, I bring up the Phantoms book a lot because that's who I have here. But with all the injuries that they've been experiencing, I had them trade away one of their best players so they could bring in some prospects because their season, honestly, it's not going to end well for them. So why wouldn't they rebuild their farm system and try to be better for next year and beyond? So I think that plays a big part of it. And the offseason is something that people look forward to.
But just right there, you got to midseason. I'm assuming you're talking about midseason.
Yeah, it's a 72-game season, and they just played their 51st game. So yeah. Okay,
but you got a ways into your replay, and you made a decision that we're not going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And but you had an out to keep your story going. And I think that's what we're talking about, Marco, before you got back here, is that I replayed the whole entire 1986 season. And if the Astros, Mets, and California had not won the division titles for me, would I have continued with that? Because I don't know, I might have got bored with it. I don't know. But in what I'm saying with fictional, if I pop out a fictional set and my team, his New York team, is halfway through the season, and I come to the same realization that Ian came to, that This team's not going anywhere. If you don't have something to do at that point, if there's not an option within the game, I think, let me back up a second. I was saying that I really believe this. I think people are moving from replay. Not all. There are always going to be replayers, especially in APA and Strat. They will always be a huge replay place. I think guys like me who said I would never do this are doing this. We are moving from replay to fictional, or I'm sorry, from real to fictional. But how do we keep them there? And then not go back to the dark side. And what I was saying was you got to have that out. Because if I'm in a fictional team 60 games in and we suck and I have nothing to look forward to, shelfware. It becomes shelfware. So your thoughts on that, Marco, as you're shaking your head.
Yeah, no, and by the way, I apologize. I have a sick 4-month-old upstairs. So my wife sent the SOS text. We got to do these like nose draining things and she hates it. And so I got about 20, 25 minutes and I got to run, but
no worries. We're about to wrap up anyway, but that's okay.
Keeping people around. Yeah. I mean, that's you actually hit the nail on the head. And I think this is what I was talking about just before I had to run out of here, which is if you have nothing to do or have nothing to work for, right? Because we've all gotten to that point, no matter what project, fictional, real, whatever, where, you're X number of games into the season and you need that thing to kind of push you to the finish line. And you need, you're playing a baseball season. It's the middle of August. The team's cruising in first place. Like maybe that 7-game lead is dwindled to a 5-game lead, but you haven't really noticed it yet. So in the long run, this game might matter. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like you need something to keep people around and keep them engaged in the project. And this is why, Ian, I'm not just blowing smoke. Like I'm very, very, very intrigued now on your game by what you're talking about, because it seems like it's doing something that a lot of people crave. And I'll shout out Al's Fast Inning Baseball, which Al's going to kill me for saying this, and I love you, Al, but I think the limitation with that game is the game itself is a little too quick. And that's how it was designed. I don't know if you've played that game, but that's how it was designed. So it's not a poor design by any means, but I wish that system that he built could be used somewhere else, because I'm sitting here last year in the middle of real summer and I'm in the middle of my Fast Inning Baseball, and I did a full 162 game season because it's a quick play game or quicker play game. And San Francisco was so bad, so terrible, but they had 2-star players. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, all right, if I'm San Francisco's GM, I've got 2 older players. I'm going to ship these guys off to contenders and I'm going to load up on prospects. And so I did, and I played out the rest of their season and they went from bad to worse. And now I've gotten to their off season and they have the #1 farm system in baseball. And I'm thinking to myself, this is real life. This is, if more games can do this, and Ian, it certainly sounds like that's what you're trying to accomplish. Now, all of a sudden, that meaningless season for San Francisco that I still have to play all 162 of their pathetic games, all of a sudden, I get this feeling as the gamer that I have made this move. I'm not going to enjoy it this year, but 2-3 years down the line, those prospects that I pulled into their organization, I know I'm going to see them on the tabletop in 2 seasons, 3 seasons, whatever, and they're going to make a huge impact. And the payoff is going to be awesome.
You know what? You almost like hooked yourself. The game didn't hook you.
Yeah.
For the future, by you making that trade, I don't know if you feel this way, but I know I would. By you making that trade, if you don't continue on with that and see the fruits of that trade, why even do it? And so you hooked yourself. And it goes all the way back to tying this all into what Marco said to Ian. And Ian was talking about, which was give you the sandbox to play within, to hook yourself. And Marco hooked himself to see, how did I do? Did I make the right move? Maybe those prospects don't do damn it, and you screwed up. You know what? It doesn't even make you feel bad. You just got to the story. The story was bad trade. Didn't work out. Just like in real life, there's no guaranteed prospects are going to work out. Hello, Brian Taylor of the Yankees. You never know whether they're going to really go anywhere. but it's fun to see that story is
Yes.
there. And so that's the whole point. If there isn't something after you kind of hit that spot of literally deciding, and I don't know if you guys are here, but literally deciding, do I put that over on my shelf and pull out the new shiny toy talked about last week? If I don't have that extra thing, it ends up 9 times out of 10 on the shelf.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen it go the other way too. I've made trades, in History Maker Baseball. I can remember one in particular. I think it was Tremaine Canoyer. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a closer for my Boston team. And all year long, he was blowing saves. But I didn't want to trade him, or I didn't want Boston to give up any big name offensive players to go get a closer. So I'm like, they're going to stay put. And I made all these other trades for all these other teams that made sense for their teams. Well, lo and behold, we get to the end of the season. Boston all of a sudden is in a race. That lead that had grown to 6, 7, 8 games or something was down to 1, and they had to just win 1 out of the next 3 games against, God, was it Seattle? It doesn't matter. I think it was Seattle. And not only do they lose all 3, they lost 2 out of 3 with Truman Canoyer blowing saves. And in that moment, I'm like, holy cow, I should have traded him. But I stayed put. And
That's the story.
it's little moments like that where I'm like, God, that really gives the game life. That gives it the weight that it deserves. That this is more than just a chuck dice and wait for results. This is a living, breathing storytelling machine.
Yeah, I want real quick. I want to go back to something you'd said. I use the word universe a little different than everybody else because I did it what I call a 1980 universe, and I'm still working on this. I'm in February.
I saw that. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm playing every sport. Every sport. I mean, you name it, I'm playing it. If I can find a game for it, I even made my own. I made a softball game, a bunch of other stuff. Marco, you're in it. So are you, Ian. And
what do I play?
I go around, I think you're a third baseman on one of the teams, and you're doing quite well. Ian has hit some big bombs in the softball league.
Nice.
But I took everybody from like the play community and other communities, and I made a softball game. And
that's cool.
Everybody, all my fictional players are all of us. And you guys, everybody's on a team. You got your own card. It's pretty cool. I have to show that on another show. But now, where was I? Oh, I know where I was going with all that. I wanted to tie something here together right here at the end of the show of ChatGPT in a way that I use it. And in that 1980 league, I got to the All-Star break of the NBA, and I fed all my results, everything that's going on to Chat. And I said, give me 15 potential trade opportunities that these guys are doing. And Chat came back with 15 different trades, and I picked 7 of them that I actually did. And so it's kind of neat to use Chat for things like that because it's almost like talking to a buddy. Hey, take a look at all this. Who should do something? And if they do it, what should they do? And the big thing was Michael Ray Richardson. Should the Knicks trade Michael Ray Richardson because he was their star player? But the Knicks were kind of lingering at the bottom of the standings. Should they make a deal? And then I'm going to be doing the draft in 1980 in the summertime. And so they would get those picks. Now I've alternated my entire universe away from almost to a fictional, because now if Michael Richardson's gone, I think I traded him to the Rockets. And now they've got the Rockets picks. And I got 2 first-round picks coming up. And as you said, the Knicks are making like you said, you traded away those 2 players. They went from really bad to really, really bad. And the Knicks are doing the same thing. But I got something to look forward to, and not that I'm a Knicks fan, but in that replay, what are they going to do with those 2 picks? And because even more interesting is because I use real players, who's it going to be in that 1981 draft that is going to be interesting that I'm going to pull onto the Knicks to alternate that whole entire universe now. Just another different thought of different ways to pull all these different things we all do and the way we create our stories, I think is really interesting. I'd like to get 2 minutes from each of you just on the status of where you think the gaming tabletop industry is and where you would like to see it go. Marco, let's start with you.
Oh boy, I got asked this maybe 7, 8 months ago, and I'm gonna have a completely different answer that I did then. we're in such a good spot as a community. We really are. What concerned me 7, 8 months ago, and I think I've seen the forest through the trees now, is, you know, as being one of the younger people in the hobby, I'm always concerned about bringing more young people in
Hear that a lot.
and trying, I've tried with cousins and friends and just nobody's into it. Nobody likes it. Whatever. They're a bunch of losers. I don't care. But I I look around and I look at developers like yourself, Ian, or Al Wilson, or obviously Keith, and then ST Patrick, who's coming out with another basketball game soon. I've tried my hand at making games. I'm still making a few. Who knows where they're gonna go? But the point is, AI using it has really changed how I felt about the direction of this hobby, because it's given us another tool. And I'm not a shill for AI. I also see it potential destructions in the world and all that. But just in the context of our hobby, the unlimited potential and creativity that you can use with that, coupled with the unlimited potential and creativity of the folks like Ian and Keith and Al and ST and on and on and on and on. There's never been more interesting games on the market. There's never been more interesting games coming down the pipeline. And I see these games just getting better and better and better. Truly, just
Mhm.
with every iteration, some new mechanics, some new trade logic, whatever, like just helpers. Oh my God, like I just recently found out about like the blue links and the green fox. And did you guys
Mike
see what Paul,
Mikowski stuff. Yes.
yeah, Mike Ignico, did you guys see what Paul Fay did with the Commissioner
Yeah.
HQ for it's phenomenal, the stuff that's out there. Basically league management software for our tabletop. And it's just, my mind is consistently blown at the intelligence and the creativity of the people in this community. I'm so optimistic of where this is going, and I'm so excited to see the next generation, so to speak, of what they're going to come up with.
Yeah.
Not that I ever want to see those games go away, but like when I sit down to play an app, and I sound like an app hater. I'm not. I've got every app game sitting in that closet right there. But when I sit down and play an app or a strat game, and they're amazing games, don't get me wrong, but when I sit down and play them, I think to myself, like, boy, have we come a long way from these little green, not green, blue and white, gray little cards that you look at two columns and that's the whole game, or this card that's just a circle that they charge you $190 for one season of, all these little numbers and red lines or red numbers, and that's your whole kit, to what Keith's doing at play and what those cards look like, Ian, what your cards look like. And it's like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
and that's just in the last 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Ish.
amazing what the boom has been in the last, let's just even say the last 10. It's been incredible. And these guys
Yeah.
and what they come up with. And it seems like almost, you talk about 7 months ago, I think you said, Marco, it seems like every week we're taking another step. I feel like we're in
Yes.
such a great spot right now. Every
Yes.
week, something new. Ian's mind of what he did with the whole off season, Keith's mind with what he does with the leap set,
Yes.
making Paul Skeens on Arizona, 40 years old. I mean, the minds of these people, and we get to all play it out, which is, we're sitting in the greatest chairs of all because of these guys. And I'll throw in Grant Fines as another one I had on the show.
Yeah,
last
Grant.
week.
Yeah,
The stuff
yeah.
Grant's done has been amazing that he puts out there. And we're also in this express mode now that everybody is kind of playing into and having part of these express games, because understanding we don't have the time we'd like to have. I just think those are going to get better and better and better.
I'm glad you mentioned Grant. I know you had him on last show, I think, or maybe the one before. But Grant, I should have shouted out Grant, because when I played his Quick Decks hockey, I haven't played highlight hockey, but when I played Quick Decks hockey, and I saw his innovation of you like being able to set, defenseman aggressive and being able to basically set how you want your team to play. I'm like, I know it's been done before, but not like that. Like what?
Exactly.
That is brilliant. Like what? How do we do this in other games? This is great.
Yes, and if I think you said something earlier about another game, Fast Strike Football. How do we get that into this? And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
all. And I'm gonna bring it back to a reality comment. Unfortunately, there are no perfect games. And you know what? Because what Marco wants and what even Ian as a player wants, because Ian could not find a perfect game, so went and built his own. You know, and we heard the same thing from Grant.
Mine's not perfect, and I know that too.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, but it's perfect for you. You know what I mean? Because you built it for yourself. And Grant talked about that last week, saying, I built my own game, not for anybody else, for me. I wanted a perfect game for Grant. And then people saw it and went, you got to sell this. So he did. But then he started to realize people were like, not complaining, but like, well, it doesn't have this or it doesn't have this. And you're always going to get that. I'm sure you get that, Ian, as a developer. It doesn't have this or doesn't have, because you know what? It wasn't made for that. It was made for this. And it's understanding the choices that Ian made as he built his game, understanding why Grant made his game, why Keith makes his games the way he does. None of them are perfect, but they all bring in something cool. And they all bring in, you're talking about the defensive piece on 49 decks, or how about the umpires and HMB? What a freaking thought that was. You know, the artwork and the batter pitcher integration between Ian's game. That I think confrontation is the right word, right? Ian, that he has, that's so unique in it. And it's, but you know what's great is it's unique. So when I pull out Ian's game, I have a unique piece to his game. When I pull out HMB, I got a unique piece to that game that I'm going to get to play. So what do I feel like today? What do I feel like? And that's what makes it great. Ian, your thought of it as a developer and as a gamer, how do you see this community?
I mean, honestly, for me, somebody who didn't even know this community existed 5 years ago, just the fact that I brought a game to the market and everybody's been so welcoming for the most part, and like just being a part of the community, that's really enough for me. Where it's going, like, honestly, it just seems really good. Everybody's putting out a great product. Everybody loves to play. The community gets together. They play together. Like, this has been a great train ride for me in general. I did my first conference in Digital to Dice and got to be in front of a lot of people, and people sit down and play my game, and they want to take the game with them after they play it. Like, all these experiences are just stuff that I did not have 5 years ago. So for me, where the community is and where it's going, honestly, I'm just up for the train ride to see where it goes. That's really all I can say.
You just bought a seat and let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Like I bought a ticket. I'm here. I'm gonna keep putting out as many different versions of my game as I possibly can, and I'm just here for the ride.
Well, guys, I know you guys have to run. I've got kids screaming outside my door. Hopefully you can't hear it. But I want to
lock the door. Run away. Go.
It's already locked. It's locked, dude.
Mine too.
But I want to thank both of you so much for coming on. You guys have both so different experiences. And Marco, you're again, my love for your video channel is absolutely amazing. Anytime you show something, I am there. Ian, your game is all over my thing here. I got your seasons. I love it. Marco,
Appreciate
I say you got to really take a look at On Deck. I think you're going to love it, man. I want to hear what you think.
Ian, I swear to God, you sold me, man. I'm really excited to try it. I'm gonna pick up a copy. It looks awesome.
I'll send me a message if you need any suggestions or a direction to go. I'll definitely be there to help you along the way.
Will do.
All right, guys. Well, this has been another fantastic episode 4. And I think, was it you, Ian, who told me if I get past 2, I'm in good shape?
I think I was one of them. Yeah, I think you're doing great. Well, and honestly, congratulations on it because it's a great show. So you're doing great.
I appreciate it, Ian.
John, I just want to tell you, there's a legitimate stat out there that something like, well, first of all, 60% of statistics are all made up, but
okay, Yogi.
I did hear, I can't remember the exact number, but over 80% of podcasts fail to make the second episode. So you've doubled that. So really great stuff. I've loved the first couple, man. It was an honor being on with you. This was great.
Well, these type of shows, and I'm sure Dave and all the rest of the guys who do this tell you that they don't make it without guys like you. Because nobody wants to hear me bitch and complain for an hour. But I do it once a week, just for maybe for my own mental health, as my last show was. But they want to hear from guys like you. And what I'm really hoping to do with this show, and I really mean this, is get more guys on like Tom Abbott last week and get them talking about their experiences, because I think we all like to hear them. And we all like to, everybody wants to hear a veteran like Marco. You may call yourself one of the younger guys in here, but you are a vet, dude, and a ton of respect that you have in the community. And they want to hear what you got to say. And it isn't about which game should they buy. I think people just want to hear what you do and what comes on behind the desktop. What is Marco thinking? What makes Marco want to do stuff? I think we pulled a little bit of that out today, and I think that's what people appreciate. So again, really thanking you guys for coming on and sharing on your busy Saturday. And hopefully I'll have you guys on again and we can talk about, remember when we talked about in episode 4 where we thought the place was going? This is episode 50.
There you go.
Wow, look where we really are. Maybe that'll be exactly where we thought we were going, or maybe Ian jumped off the train.
Not anytime soon.
He bought a ticket on the Titanic.
He did. All right, guys.
This is great, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, and have a great Saturday, guys.
You too. Take it easy.
Bye.